opening remarks, and I'll hand it off to Conservation Chair Stephen David, and then we'll move on with the evening. Welcome to the Westwood Planning Board meeting for tonight, September 21st. I'm Chris Paff, Chair of the Planning Board, and I will be chairing this meeting. First, I will do a roll call of Planning Board members. If you could signify by saying aye and raise your hand, that'd be appreciated. David Atkins.
Aye.
Ellen Larkin-Rawlings.
Aye.
Tom McCusker.
Aye.
Kate Wynn.
Aye.
And I'm Chris Paff. And also joining us tonight is our board staff town planner, Abby McCabe, and Jessica Cole, recording secretary, director of community economic development, Nora Loughnane, and town council, Pat Ahern. Also, the Conservation Commission is joining us for the first agenda item, which is the Hanlon Elementary School project. So I will turn over to the Conservation Chair to call your meeting, which is a hearing on a notice of intent for the elementary school project to order. Conservation Chairman Stephen David, please call your meeting to order and roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for sharing this meeting with the Conservation Commission tonight. I will be chairing the meeting tonight. With me is board members. I will take the roll call now. So when the board member hears their name, just indicate that they are present. Vesna Maniva.
Aye.
Todd Sullivan.
Aye.
John Rogers.
You mute, John.
Aye.
And with us is our agent, Karen Skinner. We will be addressing the notice of intent and trying to educate the public on the application and our position on that. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The meeting is recorded by Westwood Media Center and broadcast live on local cable television Comcast Channel 12 and Verizon Channel 42. Meetings are also live on the Westwood Media Center's YouTube channel. If you're having any trouble logging into Zoom, please go to zoom.us and click on Join Meeting and enter the meeting ID 892-2969-1156. We will begin the meeting with board members and staff unmuted and on video. As the chair recognizes individuals to speak, we will unmute them. Board members may choose to mute themselves when they're not speaking in order to minimize background noise. Prior to each agenda item, the chair will announce the item and provide some descriptive context. For applications, the chair will invite the applicant to address the board and give a presentation summarizing what is being requested. Board members receive the application materials prior to the meeting and will have reviewed them. Board members may ask questions during and following the presentation. Staff and outside experts will provide comments to the board. If the issue includes a public hearing, the board will then proceed to the public comment portion of the public hearing and restate the instructions. In this remote meeting format, during the public comment portion, attendees will be given the opportunity to raise their hand and wait to be unmuted and recognized to speak over the Zoom or a phone. We will be able to hear you but not see you. When we come to that part of the meeting, I will remind everyone of the process to raise your hand by hitting the raise hand button in Zoom or press *9 if dialing in by phone. Following the public comment portion, the board will deliberate and make a decision to continue the hearing or to make a decision or continue the hearing to a specific future date. All remote meetings require that votes be taken by roll call. When a motion and second has been made, the chair will ask if there's any further discussion before proceeding to a roll call vote, and then we'll restate the results of the vote. First, Abby, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, you have one change. The applicant for item number 4 on your agenda, that's the earth material movement application for Summer Street, 290, 294, and 298 Summer Street. They're still working on revised plans, and they requested that you continue to your next meeting on Tuesday, October 12th at 7 p.m., which will be another Zoom meeting. If you could take up that vote.
Okay, so can I take a motion to continue?
So moved. Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Ellen.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Tom.
Aye.
Kate.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. So that agenda item has been continued to October 12th. And that business now being done, we will now open the public hearing for the Hanlon Elementary School project for both the Planning Board's limited EIDR and the Conservation Commission's notice of intent. The applicant is here, I believe, right, Abby?
Yes, I'm bringing in the project team right now.
Okay. Once they're all in here, we will let them proceed.
Good evening.
I'll just take a moment to get everyone in.
One more, I think. Is Tim here?
Tim can't join tonight.
Oh, all right. My mistake.
We should have Chin though. Yeah, Chin's here.
Just going through the list to see if everyone's here.
Rob, is everyone from that you need on? I think everyone that I know of is joining.
Trying to see all the squares here.
I see
Looks like they might be.
Debs. I see Brian.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Jeff is joining, Deb, or is it just you tonight?
He was planning on it, but
Okay. And the only other person I'm seem to be missing is Kevin Stetson. Oh, there you are. I see him now. Yep. So yep. I think everybody's here.
We're here. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Abby, do you want me to start
Sure.
or?
So however you'd like to proceed, it's fine with us.
All right.
Your presentation.
Well, thank you very much for having us to both the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission. I am Maya Plotkin. I am Chair of the School Building Committee, also on the School Committee. And I just want to introduce who is with us tonight. We have Superintendent Emily Parks, who I'm sure all of you know. And I'm actually going to turn over the introductions. We've got Don Walter and Rob Fitzgerald from Dorr & Whittier, our architect firm. And I'm going to turn this over to Rob to finish up the introductions and also get going on the presentation.
Great. Thanks, Maya. So others joining us today is Chin Lin is from Compass Project Management, representing the owner's project manager. Stephen Tresca is our civil engineer from Niche Engineering. Brian Zamoka is a traffic engineer from Niche as well. Deb Myers is our landscape architect from DMLA. Jeff Toma, if he does arrive, he's also from DMLA. And Kevin Stetson is our geotechnical engineer from Sanborn Head. So thank you, everybody, for having us present tonight. I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay. So tonight we're going to review the project schedule, design inspiration and project overview, traffic analysis, site plan, floor plans, and utility plan. We've got a sustainability overview, and we'll wrap up with a 3D video flyby of the project. So reviewing the project schedule, these in gray have been completed. You know, the town voted back in May for bridge funding, which passed, and we've been working over the last 4 months on design development. Next month, there are two meetings or votes. One is a town meeting on October 18th, and then the town vote on October 26th. If those votes are successful, we would begin 7 months of construction documents, bringing us out to bid in May of 2022, followed by 2 months of bidding, and then approximately 19 months of construction from July 2022 to February 2024. Students from the existing Hanlon School and Deerfield School, or at least the Hanlon School, would move into the new building in February. And then April to August would be demolition of the existing building and then completing the remaining site work. So just starting off with putting the project location into context. The proposed project is planned to be located directly behind the existing Hanlon School, spanning both a portion of the Shuttleworth property as well as the existing Hanlon School property. The Shuttleworth property is approximately 37 acres and the Hanlon is roughly 8.5 acres. Located in behind that is over 300 acres of conservation land. It's this location and surrounding environment that has provided the inspiration for the proposed project as a school in the woods. This idea of a school in the woods has had an influence on the organization of the building layout, site placement, exterior materials, and interior aesthetic as well. An earthy palette of durable exterior materials includes stone, brick, terracotta tile, all providing a welcoming natural appearance and longevity to the building. This is a view from our 3D computer model of the building and site as a view from Gay Street. As you can see, there's a park-like feel from the soccer and there's a baseball field over to the right from this view. Here you can see it. This is a view from Gay Street at the northern entrance into the site. So you can see the building is tucked back a little ways away, providing a buffer between it and the residential neighborhood. This is a bird's eye overall view of the building looking northwest. And as you can see from this image, we made a significant effort to provide horizontality to the building, bringing in abundant daylight in all the classrooms and extended learning spaces. And we utilized careful placement of building materials to break down the scale of the building. A welcoming entry canopy also helps to guide students and visitors to the main entrance. So taking a step back, this plan shows the location of each of the elementary school's catchment areas. This was reviewed extensively early on in the process to help inform decisions on travel distances and traffic impacts of one option over another. Now I'm going to turn this over to Brian Zamoka, who will speak briefly about the traffic study that was completed.
Thanks, Rob. Just making sure I'm not on mute. All right, so we started off back in November 2019 to assess the existing traffic conditions as they relate to the school. What we studied, you can kind of see here, we looked at parking, we looked at student-parent pickup drop-off, and we looked at pedestrian mobility. What we found in conversations and observations is there's only one bus that serves students for the Hanlon School. When we looked at pickup and drop off, we noticed cars had to back out onto Gay Street, which caused minor impediments to traffic. But given the low volume on Gay Street during our observations, there wasn't significant impacts. However, we did notice during pickup times, Rob.
Oh, sorry.
We did notice that cars were parked on the neighborhood streets during the pickup time. So that was one of the things we wanted to look at further. And in talks with the school and the crossing guards, when we were out there, we found that there was a large percentage of walkers to this school, which definitely is great for the mode share. And also when we looked at parking, the parking lot was about 85% utilized. We also wanted to look at the Deerfield School, knowing that that was an option. And for the Deerfield School, what we found was there was 80% students taking the bus, and others were mostly pick up and drop off. Next slide, please. Then in December 2020, we did our full impact study. We looked at the impacts due to the increase in site-generated traffic and how it relates to the roadway network. Because of the time period, because of COVID, we had to take the counts in October 2020, and per traffic engineering standards, we adjusted them to best represent the pre-COVID conditions. From there, we analyzed the existing and future conditions to the major intersections as shown right here. As per standard traffic engineering methods, we use the Institute of Transportation Engineers to obtain the existing and proposed traffic volumes for the school. Typically, we would count them, but since we did it during COVID and school was essentially closed at that time, we could not get it. So we did our best job at estimating. And knowing the approximate distribution of pickup drop-off, walkers, buses, we were able to make assumptions on the mode share and how the number of vehicles that are going to be accessing the site. Then we use our traffic modeling software, synchro modeling software, to analyze these as they relate to vehicle delay and queuing. And what we ultimately determined is there's going to be minimal impacts to the roadway network. Therefore, we don't recommend any offsite mitigation at this time. Definitely no turning lanes, as noted. So, Rob, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Great, thank you, Brian. Moving on to the site. So some of the improvements that we've done, taking the traffic into consideration, is that we've created an entire separate bus loop, which you enter in onto the north side. And then from the south is a parent drop-off. So this is also separate. So you can see the idea here is that parents would come in and loop around and exit out the same entrance, and buses would do the same. Faculty and staff would arrive in the morning, prior to the buses coming in, and so they would come in and filter into either one of these spaces out here. There's a visitor drop-off area here, and then there's a number of other spaces. So estimating roughly between 100 and 120 staff, leaving 42 to 62 spaces left over for visitors and then playfield use. And then, of course, after school hours, all of those spaces kind of open up for people to use the gym or after school use of the fields. To the north here, there's a Little League baseball field, 200 feet to the fence line. There's 11v11 soccer field. This clump of trees right here, we are trying to reuse, or not reuse, but maintain the existing trees that are located here. So when you look across today and you look across the existing baseball field, which is roughly around right here, you see this as the land kind of rises up off of the field. There's some trees there. So we've taken great steps to try and hold on to those, to have some mature trees on the site. We're also attempting to hold on to these two trees here. There's this large one directly out in front of the existing Hanlon School, which is located right around this area. We've also pulled back the entrance on the north here. So currently today, the actual entrance into the site is up off the page. And so we did look at site distances and located this entrance far enough away from the entrance onto Laura Lane as well. There's an existing crosswalk right here, and so we're maintaining that. And we've connected this, often traveled pathway connecting from Croft Regis for walkability into the site. So we're creating this sort of meandering sidewalk leading up to the building. It's very clear for students and visitors to see where the entrance is with the entrance canopy. And we're integrating a number of grassy islands here, again, to create a softer feel and less impact on on all the parking spaces. So as mentioned by creating these separate loops, this creates a safer path here for student walkers across. It'll be striped as well, so that any cars that do come in here by mistake, that happen to don't realize that this is the bus loop, can travel across here and pay attention to the striping. We'll have signage obviously as well. We'll having clear signage throughout the site indicating where buses and cars go. And then moving on to the entrance plaza, there's a very welcoming entrance plaza leading directly into the entrance of the school. Down here, there are some parking spaces that will allow for access into the Scout House, which is located just off of the property. And then at the end of this sidewalk, we're creating a footpath that will connect up to a relocated fire access trail. So today there's a fire access trail that runs straight across like this. We'll be changing that to route around the school property and then connect back up with Laurel Woods over here. Later on, I'll show you a phasing plan and we'll talk about when all of that work is planning to happen and how that's integrated. But the intent is to keep that ongoing from the very beginning of the construction, so that there's always access for community members throughout the duration of the construction project. This is the service drive here for access into the receiving and maintenance area, emergency generator and dumpsters. And then this is a fire lane. We had many meetings with the police and fire who reviewed the plans with us and helped us to shape and guide the design of that. We've got a gate located at this location and then another gate on this side, so that during school hours, it's a safe area for kids to be without worrying about traffic going through there. In the north side of the site, directly out of the cafeteria, is the playground area. And here we've got a wide variety of playground systems, if you will. So we've got some structured play areas with poured in place, cushioned, soft, falling material. And then we have some hardscape ball play, accessible route to get up. So there's a stair here with an accessible path to get up to that play area, comes across, and there's also another accessible route on the opposite end. There is a fenced-in K1 play area specifically for the younger students. We also are planning a fence that would run right along the tree line here, essentially, that would wrap around and separate the access trail from the school property. So the students know where the boundary is, and there's no worry about dogs on the trail coming over into the school property. There's a grassy play area here as well for students to play and kick the ball around. And then there are two outdoor classrooms, one located here for students to access out of their classroom wings, and then an outdoor classroom here that we're calling the STEM porch. We are aware of this wetlands buffer. We had the site reviewed by a wetlands scientist, and they flagged it. And so we've been trying our best to locate the building with that in mind and trying our best to stay out of that buffer. We're skirting right along the edges of it. So we think that we are going to be into it a little bit, but we are substantially away from the 35-foot buffer. Along this property, or along this side, there are some retaining walls that are planned. The natural gradation of the site goes from high end to low. So there is some ledge that is known to be found generally in this area here, based on our test pits and borings that we've done. We'll be doing some excavation there and then filling in down here to level the site. Um, let's see, I think that's most of it. We've got some additional landscaping planned here along this property edge to provide a buffer to the Laura Lane property owners. We're also maintaining an 80 to 100 foot existing natural buffer of the existing tree line here as well. We did see some comments asking about some additional trees along this side, which we can certainly address. There is a site sign that's planned to be located here at this entrance, as well as this entrance, that will state, Hannon Elementary School, so people know that this is an entrance into the school property. I think those are the highlights, and we can certainly circle back on this afterwards after I finish the meat of the presentation. Going over the floor plan, this is the main entry into the building. The cafeteria and performance space is over here. Gym located here. This is designed actually much larger than you would typically have for an elementary school of this size. And this was a result of numerous meetings with the community who requested additional court space. And so the school district sees this as a big community asset. So this is designed to be sized for high school competition court in this direction, but also 2 middle school courts in this direction with a curtain that might come down here in the middle. Abundance of spectator seating as well. This is the extended day program, administration, music. These are grade level clusters or small neighborhoods of classrooms that surround an extended learning area. On this lower level is kindergarten, 2nd grade, 3rd grade. The pink spaces symbolize student support spaces or special education spaces, or for the general student population as well. So these small group rooms allow for teachers to pull out students and meet with them, or if a group of students wants to meet quietly. So these are the types of things that are happening in the hallways of the current Hamlin and Deerfield schools. And so here we are dedicating actual teaching and learning space for that. Down the southern end is the Library Media Center at the heart of the building, with art and STEM on each side. Just referring back to the existing site, really influenced a lot of the design here. So this was actually called the tree plan. So these are like branches that reach out attached to this supporting sort of root or foundation of the building. So the relationship of these 3 spaces is important as a collaborative entity. This line here is showing the separation between public and private spaces. So meaning after school hours, this door here would get locked and essentially isolates the public area from the private, so that after school hours, this whole entire portion of the building can get locked off, and these spaces can continue to be used after hours. Going up to the 2nd floor, it's very similar to the first, in that it's all the classroom wings are in these grade level clusters, 1st, 4th, and 5th, with a 2nd portion of the library on the 2nd level. Now I'll turn it over to Steve Ventresca, our civil engineer, who will walk through the utility plan.
Hi, good evening. So we know that the existing Hanlon School is not in compliance with the with current stormwater regulations, but for the new school, we are proposing a variety of measures to address stormwater that would be in compliance with the stormwater handbook and also with the town of Westwood's bylaw. And the majority of the and that's to mitigate rates and volumes for stormwater. And so we're using 3 different techniques. One of them is the plastic arch chambers in stone. And you can see those in the I'm going to call it the lighter green areas. Yep, there and there, and then in the back of the new school. And then we also have a system at each entrance. The other method that we're using is an LID approach, or low impact development approach, or the bioretention systems, which are in the center of the site. So essentially on either side of the proposed parking and drive aisles for the parent and bus drop-offs respectively. And then finally, the last measure for drainage that we're going to employ for the site is porous pavement. And we're proposing porous pavement in the parking stalls only. I've done this on one other project, and it's worked very well as far as reducing rate and runoff, stormwater volumes and rates. And I think it's a more efficient way to lay out the parking and while also providing stormwater mitigation. We are in discussions, or have discussed this with DPW. As far as using porous pavement and bioretention, they are open to the project using this type of material to mitigate stormwater. We are also providing a new water service off of Gay Street. We're looping it around the proposed building, and then we are connecting to an existing stub at the end of Laura Lane to provide a complete loop, not only around the building, but between Gay and Laura Lane. And again, we've spoken with the water department, and we've had initial conversations with them and included their comments already into our design plan that you see in front of you. And that's been submitted to the state. After water, we have a new sewer connection for the proposed building, and that is connecting to the existing sewer manhole in Gay Street at the southern end of the site. The sewer line crosses beneath the play fields, and then it goes up along the southern edge of the parking for the parent drop-off. And then it goes to, and then it connects and picks up discharge points at the building. We are providing a grease trap, and that's in the northeast corner of the building. And that's in compliance with standards for picking up kitchen waste with the plumbing board, and also with the town in Title V. And then we are showing coordinating existing electrical connections. There's a connection off Gay Street on the southern entrance, and that's basically routed along the edge of the driveway and the parent drop-off, as Rob is pointing out, and then looping in and going into the mechanical room. We are providing domestic water service and fire protection service as required. And I guess in summary, we have received comments from Beta as part of the peer review process for site plan review. And my understanding is that we'll have a conversation with them, hopefully in the next couple of days, and go through the items and then revise our plans accordingly with calculations back to Beta for their review for the next hearing. And, as Rob pointed out, I just need to point out that, we have been sensitive to the wetland that's to the south. We're providing discharge points, 3 of them, and we're trying to stay as far away as we can based on the grading for the site, and definitely staying out of the 35-foot no disturb or no touch buffer. That's part of the local bylaw. So we are encroaching within the 100-foot buffer, and we're trying to be as sensitive as we can to that, and try to minimize grading and tree clearing as much as possible, while also getting into compliance with the stormwater handbook. So look forward to any questions that you have at the end of the presentation. And Rob, I don't know, you have geothermal wells pointed out, and I don't know if that's something that that you wanted to discuss, or if we want to just wait till the end.
I was just on utilities. I just wanted to note that we do have a geothermal well system planned. There's about 80 of them, 600 feet deep, closed loop, quad loop wells, and that will be providing the heating and cooling for the building. So it's all electric. Thank you, Steve. So moving on to construction phasing. Here in the light blue is the existing Hanlon School. So our first step in phase 1 of construction is extending this pathway for a trail connection over to the Lowell Woods. This was an important piece that was brought up during community meetings, and so we've made a significant effort to continue to use that. We've also, as part of phase one, is integrating fencing around the construction area to provide a safe construction zone and separation between the construction and others, either the existing school or others using the path. This will allow the existing school to continue to operate, albeit they have a smaller playground space, but they could still use the parking areas here and located in and around the school in the loop here. So the school will continue to be ongoing while construction is happening. Phase two is construction of the new school. Once that's complete, we would move students from the existing Hanlon School into the new building, abate and demolish the existing school as part of phase four, along with completing the remaining fields and landscaping of the east end of the site. So on sustainability, we partnered early on, actually almost a couple of years ago now. We started this process with a feasibility study and met with the town energy manager, Tom Philbin, and we aligned the sustainability goals that Westwood had with the project. So right now we're tracking a LEED version 4 silver as a certified green school with the USGBC. We are net zero energy ready, which is basically energy used is energy generated, and we're doing that by significant efforts of improving the exterior envelope by providing significant insulation, minimal air infiltration. We are striving to achieve below 25 energy use intensity for a low energy building, high performance ventilation system. As I mentioned, all electric fossil fuel geothermal heating cooling system. And then the roof system, the roof structure is designed to support future photovoltaic panels. And the school's talked about doing that through a power purchasing agreement. We've been working closely with Eversource and Mass Save to achieve incentives for all of the Path 1 net zero energy schools project. And so we're working, the school district has signed a memorandum of agreement or of understanding to chase those incentives. We also gave a presentation to Mass Save a number of months back on net zero energy building and using the Westwood project as an example. In addition to that, the MSBA has asked us, the school district, to provide a presentation on the project and its net zero energy process that we went through to get where we're at. And finally, all of this is in an effort to reduce carbon impact on climate change. So now I'm going to show you a flyby video of the project. This is we have the building in 3 dimensions of the site and building, and so we've done this video to help kind of explain some of the features of the building. I'll kick this off here. So the new site layout features the creation of a neighborhood park with a multi-use athletic field and Little League baseball field with trees lined along Gay Street. The expansive green views also provide a buffer between the residential zone and the school. The school can be accessed from the north for buses and from the south for parent pickup and drop off, creating a significant safety improvement for today, with abundant space between cars and buses while creating several accessible walking routes to the school. Students are greeted by a welcoming canopy that leads to the front door, with plenty of gathering places for parents and students to meet before or after school. To the left in this view is one of the academic wings. In the center is the administrative area, and the extended day program is located just to the right alongside the gym for easy community access. The reception area with natural light filtering through the skylights provides a sense of warmth and comfort with a mix of wood, soft seating, and openness to nurture relationships between staff and students. The lobby space has a mix of soft seating and tables to form a mix of gathering spaces for students, teachers, and visitors alike. The transparency allows for views and connections to the outdoors. The gym supports the physical education needs of the students, but also provides much needed additional athletic court space for the community. Cafeteria has a wide variety of dining experiences and seating choices. It also serves as a performance space for both student and community use. The northern wall boasts a large glass window, allowing for a direct connection to the natural surroundings. The playground is located directly outside the cafeteria for easy transitions between lunch and recess. There are a number of options for students with varying skill levels and ages, including tables for quiet reflection or conversation, accessible playground equipment for K1 and 2-5, climbing, sliding, and swinging areas for individual play. Play area also features places for group play, such as half basketball court, hardscape, and grassy lawn areas for running. Each classroom provides multiple teaching areas, a messy project area, a big window seat for reading, and easy access to a shared small group room. The extended learning areas are spaces that are located directly in the center of each grade level neighborhood that allow for a spilling of curriculum from the classrooms. The library is at the heart of the academic wing, adjacent to art and STEM labs, to create a centralized hub for exploration. The two-floor location is designed to be flexible and supporting a variety of activities and group sizes. An outdoor learning space designed directly outside the library art and STEM labs supports the use of the outdoors as a supplemental learning environment. This space offers tremendous opportunities for interdisciplinary lessons connected to the surrounding woods and natural landscape. The north to south orientation of classroom windows allows for maximum control with building integrated shading. The earthy material palette was chosen to blend into the natural surroundings with the use of stone, brick, and terracotta shingles. The varying brown color and form of the shakes also symbolize tree bark to again reinforce the idea of a school in the woods. The building is designed to be highly sustainable, on track to be a LEED certified green school, net zero energy ready with geothermal wells, eliminating the use of fossil fuels, and a roof designed to support solar panels. So that's the end of the presentation. Open to questions, comments, reactions.
All right. Thank you very much. Found that really informative to tie together all the materials that we got prior to this. Let's see, we have about 45 minutes, so I know Conservation wants to needs to move on to their next Zoom meeting. But the format that we agreed on would be the planning board would ask questions and then Conservation would ask questions. So at this point, I'll put it out to planning board members. And this is not your only time to ask questions. Follow-up questions are expected, anticipated. We'll start with planning board members. Just simply raise your physical hand if you have questions or comments you'd like addressed. Mr. McCusker. You're muted, Tom. You there?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Do we have a number on the cost of this building?
Yes, we do.
What is it?
Do you want me to answer this, Rob?
Sure. Yeah,
so the total project cost is $87.7 million. The MSBA has committed to reimbursing up to $18.2 million of that cost. So the net cost to Westwood residents is $69.5 million.
When do you expect to go out to bid?
We're putting the project out to bid in May of 2022.
And what are you asking the town meeting to do prior to that?
So this October 18th at the special town meeting, we are asking the town to approve the balance of the project cost. So as you recall, in 2018, the town approved 1.75 million for the feasibility study. And then last spring, 2021, the town approved 1.45 million for the the bridge funding to pursue design development this summer. So we are asking for the balance of that at town meeting, which is about $84 million.
So you'll be asking the town meeting to appropriate that amount of money without having a contract.
Yes, this is the MSBA process. This is the way they have required us to do it. I thought it was unusual myself that we would be asking the town for money without a contract in hand, but this is the MSBA process, and it's up to us to make sure that the bids come in at or below the number that the town has appropriated.
Well, all I can say is that we have done this once before, and we were burned very badly.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, we're aware, and we are taking lessons from that and going to work. We've done, just so everybody knows, we are, keenly aware of the cost. And so what we did this summer is when we were 50% through design development, we went out to the cost estimators to make sure we were on track. They came back and said, with a few tweaks, we were still on budget. Then once we were 100% through design development, we went back to the cost estimators to make sure that we were still on budget. And again, a few tweaks later, and we are still on budget. And we do have escalations in there built in to take into account that we are not going out to bid until spring 2022.
I just have one last question. Eventually, when you are ready to award the contract, what have you got in place to vet the apparent low bidder?
So I believe, and Rob or Chin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we are going to try and do this as a pre-approval process where we will pre-approve certain contractors for prior to the bidding and then go with that group. But I do believe we still need to take the lowest bid. But again, this will be based on pre-approval.
You have to take the lowest responsible bidder.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thank
you. Yes. Thank you, Tom.
All right. Thanks, Tom. And I believe I moved on prior to addressing. Phil Paradis is here from Beta Group, acting on behalf of the town, and I would be remiss if I didn't call on him to explain or bring up any other issues that he sees. Phil, are you there? You have anything you'd like to present to both boards here tonight?
Generally, we covered most of the comments in our letter dated September 16th here, but generally we don't have a lot of traffic issues. I think our traffic engineer was mostly interested in adding discussion about pedestrian and bicycle access to the building. Obviously, the plans provide a number of pathways there, but I think just documenting that in the report, there's a number of other technical things that are just not going to impact the project a whole lot. But we are a little concerned about the stormwater management generally. It seems it's going to need a little bit of work here. Predominantly that the site is going to need additional soil testing to determine that the proposed BMPs, which are well thought out, but we just want to make sure that they work and can function as designed. So I don't think we have a lot. We have some recommendations relative to minor screening issues and lighting, but generally we find that the project is well thought out.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on to other planning board members with comments, concerns, questions. Yes, Ellen.
I had a handful of questions, and I'll try and move through them quickly. First one jumped out at me. The beta review mentioned that the project would disturb 19 acres of land, but the project application said it was disturbing 10.2. So I was just curious, what is the right number out of those two?
So the existing Hanlon site is approximately 8.5 acres. So that's already developed. And so that's where we're accounting for the additional, 10 acres or plus or minus of previously undeveloped property.
Okay. It was the same terminology in both that, total land disturbance. So it was a little confusing. So the total land disturbance, if you count the existing school, is the 19 acres. Okay.
Right.
Second question. I went to the FinCom meeting last night and I noticed one of them, it's something I was curious about too. There was a question about cost for a system to deal with radon, and the cost was thrown out, but I was curious what the details of that system were, just kind of at the high level. Like, what are the plans? Is there an existing issue, or are you predicting there will be with the amount of ledge removal that you need to do?
Sure. So because of the amount of ledge that we are removing there, it was just a preemptive approach to making sure that it's much easier to do it prior to you build the building than afterwards. So it's a very simple system. It's basically just a series of perforated pipes that receive any gas and then draw them out with a fan that ventilate it. So the pipes are underneath the slab. No one will ever see them or hear them or know that they're even there. That's just like the big picture thing. It's a very simple system, and it's typically that's the way it's done in new construction.
Okay. No, I asked because we had to mitigate my home, so I'm sort of familiar with the issues that can come up when ledge is disturbed. So it sounds like it's a very similar system to what a resident would have in their home, just larger. Piggybacking on that, do you have any plans to maybe take some baseline readings or to advise abutters that may be close enough to be affected by the ledge removal to take baseline readings in their homes prior to construction starting?
Yes, absolutely. Right now, the school district is planning to hire an independent contractor in the early spring, and they would go out and they would reach out to all of the abutters properties and do a video surveillance of their existing properties prior to any construction happening on the site, and that would get documented so that if there's any issue later on, we know what the existing conditions are.
I meant specifically radon testing, not just that.
Okay. I guess I don't understand the question.
Hypothetically, there could be homes that are in proximity to, close enough to be, if they're on the same ledge as ledge is going to be disturbed, they could be affected by this construction as far as the radon level goes. There may be homes that have existing radon issues. And I guess I was just curious if there were any plans to maybe advise residents that could be affected to get a baseline test to determine whether or not there's a delta before or after construction.
I don't know, Kevin, do you want to speak to that?
Sure, Rob. Kevin Stetson with Sanborn Head. Typically, the radon is naturally occurring in the rock. So we typically look at it as if you're close to the rock surface, which we will be because we're moving some of it. That's when you're more concerned about the radon. It would be unusual or unlikely that the blasting or the rock removal that occurs at the school would change any levels in any of adjacent structures, especially given the distances away, that it wouldn't induce any kind of change in their structure. And so if they have, they may have looked at it or not, but I don't see it as an issue in terms of change based on the construction for radon levels and adjacent structures. That answers
reassuring. It does. That answers the question perfectly. And then again, piggybacking on that, because you did bring up the blasting, I read through all the information you provided as far as the amount of ledge, and there was a comment that blasting would probably be the way that you'd want to do the majority of it. Have you is that the case? You're thinking more blasting than rock hammering?
Yeah, the idea, it's the most efficient and actually less disturbance from our perspective for the neighbors. A blasting operation, there's going to be probably 2 blasts a day. Those are fairly, they're less than a second long. This would be done in a controlled manner, so it's going to be matted and those things. So they're actually, it's pretty uneventful when it happens, that and hammering is, a hole ram is actually quite loud and takes a lot longer to do. Now, a lot of times once you blast, there may be areas where you've got a high spot that didn't fracture completely, or you've got a utility line that you would do some more localized hole ramming that would be shorter duration. But that is the plan, both for an efficiency and timing aspect of that. And overall, the amount of rock we're removing is not significantly thick, so you would be doing these in a single bench. We don't have to have multiple blasts in the same area.
And just to follow up on that, we have had a few meetings with the abutters specifically, and so we've informed them of the construction scheduling, the phasing, and ramifications to them, such as the blasting. And we've also informed them that, we will be doing this pre-construction evaluation or video, if you will, of their existing conditions. So we are working with the abutters to make sure they're aware of what's happening and when it's happening.
Excellent. That's helpful. And then my last thing was just a comment. I wanted to personally commend your commitment to try and preserve as much of the natural landscape as possible. And that I saw the notes that the plantings, you're choosing native plants, and that is something that I'd kind of push for from the get-go, particularly being so close to so much conservation land. It's important, in my opinion, to make sure we're not introducing non-native species as much as we can. So thank you for that. I was very happy to see that in the plan. And that was all I had.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you, Ellen. Any other planning board members with a comment or a question? Kate?
Thank you. Just a quick one. During construction, assuming that the construction vehicles will be entering the property to the left, when you're facing the Hanlon, to the far left Hanlon, and I'm just curious, how many parking spaces are you going to lose? To how wide will that?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know that we are going to be impacting that many in terms of the entrance drive. We are trying to retain as much of those existing parking spaces that are on Gay Street intact so that they can continue to be used, and then we'll have the construction fence, just beyond that. So it should be fairly minimal in terms of the number of spaces lost. I mean, I don't have a number there, but we're trying to stay as far south of that. I would guess maybe 2 or 3 spaces.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Kate. Dave.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for everyone for all the work that's gone into this. I had a couple of specific questions and general comments. So three different things on this. Sustainability, accessibility, and walkability. And I think it's important to think of this as we're replacing a 70-year-old school with a school that's going to be here for another, hopefully 50, 70 or more years. So I think it's something 30 years from now, people will look back on this and say they made the right choices. They did things that are forward thinking. And that's what I think everyone is trying to do with this. So on issues of sustainability, I really want to thank the work that everyone's done here to integrate the input from WEAC and work with Tom Philbin, energy manager. I mean, it does seem to be a model for the way things could be done for other places, and just the whole integration of that process is great. Accessibility, there's comments that were submitted from the Commission on Disability, and I just wanted to emphasize that I read those and I thought they raised a lot of good points, and that many of them are already addressed, but if there's additional details there to go back over the coming weeks and see if there's anything else that can be done there to address some of those concerns. Because again, thinking forward to the future where people with with different abilities and all, we want to say this was something that we planned for it, and it's created a school that serves everyone. So I think that's an important concept, and I don't want to go over all those individual points that they raised, but just to reinforce that as a really important factor here. And then walkability, again, I'm going to defer to Steve Olenoff, made a number of comments. He submitted some written comments raising a lot of specific issues about pedestrian safety and pedestrian circulation, crosswalks, things like that. And I want to encourage the group here to respond to that and to ask a couple of questions. First of all, so is the crosswalk at Croft Regis, is that going to include an RFD, a flashing beacon kind of thing?
Yes. We have that incorporated into our budget.
And then I think the town has recently improved or is in the process of improving all the crosswalks, but I would love to see the walkability aspects treated in a similar way to the sustainability ones. Just kind of go through this and think and map out how kids are going to get to school, how parents are going to get to school, and see if there's anything else that can be done in the area. So specifically like the Pine Lane Island crosswalk area, if there's any additional safety enhancements that could be made working with the town to make that area a safer crossing. And then kind of going down the line, there's like Loring Street on Washington, that crosswalk. Forest Road, it's been improved a little bit. There's a new treatment there. And then the School Street Playground area. I would just like to see if anything that can be built into this to recognize that it is a community resource. It's not just during school hours, the school bus is dropping people off. It's going to be a resource that is used by the entire community. And so anything that can be done to improve the safety of all of those crossings, and actually to think through like how are people going to get there on foot, and say here's something we did to improve that. That would be great if there's any additional stuff that's not covered here. And of course, I also hope that after this project we can look at the Gay Street sidewalk. I know the pedestrian bike committee endorsed that, and again, it's all thinking towards a future that's where it's an accessible, sustainable school. So I don't know if there's any feedback anybody had or specific about the crosswalk safety and pedestrian access.
I think, Dave, you raise excellent points about the crosswalk safety. I will say that those are outside the scope of this project. This project really goes up to the sidewalk and sort of that it's, but I agree that we should look at that. And I think that if we take that to the select board and we talk about that with the select board, it's not in scope for this project. It's not in budget for this project. And quite frankly, I don't think we'd be able to, this is a school project. We wouldn't be able to reach those areas within this project. But I think you raised some important points about looking at those crossings. Hanlon is a very walkable school currently. I think the fact that there's only one bus that goes to Hanlon tells you that, a lot of the kids walk to Hanlon. So I think these are important issues. I just don't, they're not within the scope of this particular project. But I agree with that. And the Gay Street sidewalk project, I think, after this project needs to be looked at as well.
And sorry, if I can just add on in response to one other comment that you made, David, was the Commission on Disabilities. We met with them back in March, and they gave us a letter, and they pointed out a lot of good recommendations, which we have actually incorporated into the project since then. We just haven't met with them again. We've got a planned meeting with them next week, actually, to update them on all the things that we've integrated into the design. So I think that they'll find that we've actually incorporated the vast majority of the items that they've recommended.
Yes, Kate.
All right, just while we're on this, I did have one other question, and I'm going to have to hop off and listen for much of the rest of this. I appreciate Dave's points. I was looking at the beautiful sidewalk between the fields, and my concern about that, and I didn't get a chance to look at if there's a lighting plan. My concern with that is that it is well lit, and that it does have the trees, and people will be walking to this building in the evening and from this building, after a show. So I just want to make sure that that we're taking into account pedestrians at night.
Yes, we do have pedestrian height, like 12-foot high light poles all along that walkway leading up to the school.
All right, thank you. Dave, were you complete with your questions?
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Thank you. I had a couple things that I just like to bring up, and I think more of an explanation for those people who are in attendance tonight. And I wanted to know, just from a very basic point of view, can you explain what your net zero goals? Explain net zero goals. What's your angle? What are you going for?
So, we started off this project, school district really wanted to achieve this 2 extra points of reimbursement from the MSBA. And one of those was to achieve LEED certification. And then when we met with the town energy manager and WEAC, they really said, kind of pushed us to consider going net zero and geothermal. And so we started looking at that, and the school building committee formed a sustainability subcommittee, and we met many times. I don't know how many meetings we've had over the course of the last 2 years, but we went through a thorough kind of thoughtful process of analyzing, does it make sense, this option versus this option, looked at the energy use intensity. We collaborated with Eversource. They had Thornton Tomasetti, which is another peer engineer, do some energy modeling and comparisons of what can we do for the best bang for the buck in terms of bringing our energy use intensity. Eversource said, we've got some significant dollar incentives available for net zero energy schools going through their Path 1 program. And so all of those things kind of combined to say, hey, thinking ahead to the future, the state, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts was going in that direction. Many towns were going in that direction. And so it just seemed to make sense from the school building committee's perspective to go to an all-electric geothermal building, which is really the most efficient system out there.
Thank you. And one aspect of this presentation came up, and some people may not be aware. Could you more completely describe what porous pavement is, and how does it differ from regular pavement?
Yes, Stephen Tresca, do you want to take that?
So porous pavement, it's been around for a number of years now, a couple of decades actually. And so porous pavement is essentially, it's an open graded course which allows water to go directly through the pavement and into the series of different stone layers below the pavement. I kind of liken it to a sponge. If you put water on top of a dry sponge, it kind of runs off initially, but then it absorbs that water, and then capillary action starts to pull the water through the open areas of the pavement. So it allows water to basically be infiltrated where it falls. And as you know, with standard pavement, the water hits the standard pavement, and it just follows along the grades to the low point, typically a catch basin, which it then goes into a pipe. So it allows for a greater, to capture and infiltrate water where it falls. It allows water to infiltrate, and it allows mitigation of runoff rates and runoff volumes. So it does double duty, allows cars to park, and it allows stormwater to infiltrate without having to put additional measures like plastic chambers or pipe and stone or any other type of sort of standard engineering infiltration systems that is part of our toolbox for stormwater. I could keep going, so I don't know if that's enough.
I think we got the gist of it. What about maintenance compared to regular pavement?
So maintenance, you're required to vacuum it, and it's essentially a truck that you drive over, almost like a street sweeper. It blows air into the voids, and then it kicks up the sediment that's in the voids, and it sucks it up through the truck. So, and then it captures it almost like a vacuum. UNH, I've seen recent study by UNH where if you don't do maintenance on porous pavement, it still allows water to infiltrate through. So it's a little bit more forgiving than I think what the perception is out there. So the general maintenance is a vacuum sweeper. You can also do a power washer by hand at a low angle to remove sediment. So those are a couple of options.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And I have a number of things here, but they're pretty nitty gritty, so I won't get into that. But just I'm particularly sensitive to the houses on Laurel Lane, as it seems to me they're the most affected here, and I would ask that you just be very sensitive to that. You know, shielding lights, extra landscaping, or whatever we can do to make sure that this is the smallest impact as possible to those particular homes.
So, Chris, what we have done for that neighborhood, we actually shifted the entire building in design away from that. We looked at the design back in December and said, you know what, we think this is too close to the neighborhood. And so we shifted the entire building about 100 feet away. We're also leaving, and Deb or Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're leaving about 80 feet of existing woods as a buffer between Laurel Lane and the existing school. The new school. And we're also adding some additional buffer in between those houses. So, you know, we're very conscious of Laurel Lane, particularly at that cul-de-sac area that's the closest to us, and trying to do all we can, to buff that from the neighborhood.
Thank you. And one other thought just came to mind. I was looking at your presentation and watching that. My kids went to the Downey School, and it seemed like there was an endless amount of open field between the baseball field and the soccer field. Is there enough open grass space for the older kids to play in this depiction? It didn't seem like, given what there's 560 kids and how many of the upper classes, I just looked at it, and that was a question I had. I just wasn't sure if there was enough open green space for them to play.
I think that's
I love
Emily.
that question, Chris, because that's exactly like my vision of recess, that people can run around and kick the ball. Yeah, and so that is something that we've looked at. We've thought about how many kids would be on the playground at any given time, and actually that grassy area that's sort of beyond the half-court basketball hardscape. We ultimately decided to expand the size of it by reducing something that we thought was going to be an outdoor classroom space. We actually decided to prioritize making that area bigger, and had some discussion about the size of it. So we feel pretty good about it at this point. We think it will do the trick. But we had the same question.
Yeah, just to expand on that, we've been trying to put the thread through the needle, if you will, on trying to limit the amount of development and providing play space for students. But if we look at the total amount of area that is in this green area here, it's about the size of a gym, of a high school gym. So while it may look, look small in relation to the overall size of the building, it's actually a pretty decent size for kids to kick the ball around and run.
In my mind, Rob, what I was looking at was Downey, again, that's my own personal experience, has both the Little League field and maybe half that 11v11 soccer field for open space. So in my mind, that's what I was comparing it to. And it's less kids at the Downey School than will be at this school. So that's what I was measuring against in my mind.
Yeah.
And that's a significant difference between those two and then what's here. And I'm sensitive to not wanting to create development or into the area, but the reason we're doing this is for the children. So I wouldn't be against. I mean, if you think it's enough, then I would leave it to your expert understanding of what's necessary. But the more green space, the better in my mind. But anyway, that's I'll leave it at that.
And I will have that. We have sort of an educator working group that includes principals. I'll go back and have that conversation again too, Chris, because I think it is an important point.
Are there any other planning board member follow-up questions or Dave, Tom, or Ellen remaining here before we move it over to conservation. And then after that, we'll move it out to public comment. So at that point, at this point, I'll move it over to Stephen David, Conservation Commission Chair. So you can move on with your part of the meeting. You're muted, Steve. Stephen, you're muted.
Stephen, you're muted.
There you go.
You're muted, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to begin by complimenting Rob and Meyer on an excellent presentation. I found it very informative and professional, and it was very helpful to me, not only as a chairman of the conservation, but also as a citizen in the town. Relative to conservation, I appreciated the sensitivity to the area that was pointed out by Rob, where there is some vegetation. I also read Beta's letter that they referred to, and obviously would encourage everyone to look at that. And Beta does a great job for us, and we're very sensitive to the things they point out. We'll probably be bringing that up at our next meeting when we have more time to speak with you about that. Just overall, I would echo the chairman of the planning board's concern about that open space. You know, I go by Gay Street almost every day during school hours, and seems to me that that space is highly utilized, and wherein you're going to be doubling the students, more open green space, I think, probably should get a second look. I know it's not a conservation issue, but I agree with the chairman. At this point, I'm just going to open it up to the members so they can have some input as a result of the presentation. So if any of my members have something to say, please raise their hands so they can be acknowledged. Todd, you want to start?
Sure. I'd like to support the planning board chairman on his concern for the open space as well. And I travel Gay Street quite a bit, and it seems like the whole elementary school's out on those ball fields. And I'm not sure what the ratio is to what's existing and then what you're considering for a suitable amount of space. It's kids need to run, especially little boys, fifth graders, definitely. So I don't know if there was a way of accessing the two big ball fields out front and kind of designate space for them, for the fourth and fifth graders especially. That's something to think about. But my question was answered with the permeable pavement. There is some maintenance. I think Stephen addressed it. So my question would be, that vacuuming system, who would supply that? Is that going to be a DPW thing, or does anybody have any idea who's going to maintain that permeable pavement? Is it going to be a school department thing? Because I'd imagine that's a specialized vacuum system.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and say, I don't know if DPW has that that capability, but it can be hired out, and it's relatively, affordable given what that machine is. Could be $500 a day up to maybe $1,000 a day to vacuum those to vacuum those areas. But and Rob, I don't know if you have anything else to add, but that's sort of my first stab at it.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't gotten into the discussion of who's maintaining the parking stalls, but it was discussed early on with DPW in the town, and they were on board with that approach.
Yeah, possibly it's the maintenance team at the if there's a small enough system with the maintenance team at the new elementary school. Maybe Emily could weigh in on that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think we'll figure that out as we get further into the conversation. I think that would be an important conversation to have. We do currently, partner with DPW to, for instance, plow our lots. So I think those are details that we need to dig into.
Right, right. If that's how you're going to compensate for stormwater, so you got to kind of bring it all the way
Right.
through. Who's going to own that maintenance? Because it is very important.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a footpath to that circle at Laura Lane to allow the kids from that neighborhood to access the property after they walk out to Gay Street and walk onto it that way?
Well, there is currently a fire access trail leading from the end of Laura Lane out to Lowell Woods, and so that fire access trail will be redone, as I had mentioned. So if students are or people are on Laura Lane, they happen to be on Laura Lane, they would probably be able to get through there. But I think the intent is ideally that most of the people that would be accessing the Lowell Woods trails would park in the spaces by the Scout House that we've designated there, or at any of the other parking spaces on the school property, and hop onto that walking trail from that side.
Right.
But I think the trail does, if you lived on Laura Lane, you could walk out that fire access trail and pick up the trail where it connects with the new one we're building and head and make it to the school, if that's your question.
Yeah. So if that is going to be a designated, footpath, there was one. I went to Martha Jones School, and there's a footpath from the end of Tamarack Road through to the back of the ball field, and that, that was never lit. And I know there was a question earlier about lighting the path between the two ball fields. I don't know, maybe designate a little bit of lighting down there, because it gets dark out early in the wintertime. If one of the kids is sneaking through to that neighborhood, just have a little lighting there for them or something like that. That was my only concern. But my Conservation Commission questions have been answered. It's just maintenance of that permeable pavement.
Thanks, Todd. John, you want to go ahead next?
Sure. Yeah. So let me just say this appears to be a terrific presentation. Thank you so much for that terrific amount of work to date, and appears to be a great balance of sort of hugely maximizing the benefit that comes out of the school, the site development to the neighborhood, traffic, et cetera. It looks like that's all been well considered, and minimize the negative effects, particularly to the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission around effects to the wetlands. And there is a very pristine wetland to the south of the school, and the school is going to be pretty close to it. And some of the exact details of that are to be determined. I'm not seeing it in the drawings we have yet, but I trust that will get resolved through our subsequent hearings. But really, very pleased to see this. The stormwater system as proposed and as reviewed and ultimately given approval by our town engineer, Beta. I see a lot of very detailed comments that's necessary. It's a very complex system that they're proposing, but it looks, like it will reduce the stormwater to the extent that right now it's a forested site, and the water coming off this new site with a lot of schools, a lot of roadway and all of that will has the potential to be even more beneficial, have no impact to that pristine wetland. And just to correct one of the comments Steve made, it's not only about the quantity of water, but it's the quality of the water, that the bioretention, underground storage, perimeter drains of the building, all of those things go to reduce impacts to, again, a very pristine wetland. So thank you all for that. I just have a couple of a little more detailed questions, but or comments, and we'll get into that. The only thing that is of some concern is construction effects. Again, very close to the wetland, and there's not. I couldn't see the specific grading, the specific retaining walls along that south boundary. Appreciate that you kept back from the wetlands significantly, except in one of your drawings in the presentation shows like the construction site going right through the wetland, the point of that wetland, and it should work its way around, at least to the buffer zone. So I'd want to see that corrected and make sure that that's going to be the case with grading and retaining walls. Make sure that that those have all been addressed. And any roads in those areas should drain back in toward the school's stormwater systems, if at all possible. And the other thing I would just suggest, we almost always now would require granite markers some distance from the wetlands boundary. And, this would be one of those cases where we clearly want them probably at something like 50-foot centers, probably at about the 50-foot buffer zone, not necessarily the 35 feet. And I would suggest, with all of the tremendous work being done here, suggest some signage be included. And it may actually maybe a school department rather than a construction project designing of signage and descriptions of the stormwater system that's consistent with the outdoor classrooms, what the net effect of this school as proposed, with approaching a net zero building like this with intense use and lots of impervious areas. So I think having that shown out by those bioretention areas would be an important thing. And I think those are all my comments. We'll be getting into some of the nuts and bolts as we get into our next hearing, where we get into more of the details.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Vesna, would you like to jump in here, please?
Yes, I would. So this is, again, tremendous. I agree with John. This is a great project. I can see the design efforts that went into balancing the impact that you're doing to that pristine woodland and the benefits to the community and the benefits, the energy. Everything was really thought out, and really kudos to all of you. I love the idea of school in the woods, even though, when you look at it, it's really more metaphorical than it really is real, because I didn't see a replication of the woods that were cut down. And I understand how school properties work, because I've designed quite a few of them myself. So I know where that's coming from, why you cannot replicate that forest to actually recreate it. But what I really liked about it was also the connection that kids will have from inside the building towards outside. We saw some wonderful visuals there, how they can have these wide views of the nature, and knowing our climate, that's something that is very valuable in the middle of the winter, and where it's not so nice to be outside. I do have a few questions. I'm wondering why the porous pavement was limited just to the parking slots. It seems to me it may be just easier from constructability to actually entire parking lot, do it from curb to curb, and it's just one profile, and it adds the benefit to the stormwater.
Steve, you want to take that?
Yeah, so I like to do porous in the parking stalls to allow for maneuverability of the vehicles on the drive aisle itself with the standard pavement. I know there's been concerns or there have been comments in other projects that I've worked on where if you have porous pavement in the drive aisles on warmer days, if you have heavier vehicles making turn, the slow turn into a parking stall, they could potentially ravel or work up the top course of that porous pavement. And so I found on a recent project to do standard asphalt for the drive aisle, and then the stalls having the porous pavement just for that reason. Okay. We can consider, we can look at the other options, but I think for this project, given the amount of circulation through those drive aisles, it's more prudent to go with the standard asphalt on the drive aisles.
Okay. And then, as was mentioning, the porous pavement does require maintenance. However, all your bioswales and all the other BMPs also require maintenance. So I think the town needs to be aware that, that has to, certainly I'd like to hear from Deb a little bit more about the planting. I know Ellen Rawlings mentioned that she's seen the plant list, and I have not, and I would love to. but that will be really wonderful to see, native plants incorporated, pollinators, things that would be able to withstand our climate extremes that are getting more extreme, year by year, and also that would thrive without fertilizer, without irrigation, because we know that this is a school property and it might not get the level of maintenance that some private property might get. So.
Those are may I?
Yeah, go ahead, Deb.
You can share.
The project landscape architect, Vesna. I'd love to get your eyes on the planting plan. Our approach, working with Steve from Niche on the bioretention, because they will not be irrigated. So as you know, it is an extreme sort of wet and also very dry. And then, given even what we experienced this summer, the very, very wet is very, very even more wet, and the dry is even drier. So what we're currently proposing is sort of a 2 layers. I like to keep for constant maintenance, a little bit of turf, a little bit of ground cover around the edges, for the school maintenance teams to shovel the walks and keep that tidy. And then in the middle, where the slope starts to be formed, to receive the water, we'll both have, diffusion trenches where the water's gonna, for those of you that don't know, it's like the water comes in and it's often very hot. So the last thing plants like is the very, very hot water. So we'll have enough, stone in the right places to really diffuse that heat, so that the water can actually get to the plants and infiltrate, which is the main goal, and also the infiltration and the rate of runoff. So I'm going on and on and on. But, we're going to have some woody shrubs. We're going to try to get in tons of pollinators, all native plants. And then what I like to do, sort of with that herbaceous layer, is have it so that it just gets kind of weed whacked or mowed down once or twice a year. I'd love, for the seed pods and things to hang out longer. So we'll work, operation maintenance with the library staff, but plant list for sure.
Great, thank you. And then I have just one more question. So you did answer there will be no irrigation. And then question.
Just to clarify, sorry to interrupt. There will be irrigation for the athletic fields.
Okay.
Are going to be natural turf. We do have an alternate for a sand-based infill, but the idea is that area, we're going to invest in the automatic irrigation, but the rest of the site will not be irrigated.
Okay, very good. And then my final question. So this is a combining of 2 schools, right? That's what I understood, right? So what's going to happen with the other school, Deerfield School? Is that gonna get repurposed for something else, or are we turning that property into green space?
So currently the Deerfield School is under the purview of the school department. And once the Deerfield School is vacated, the school department will examine it and see if it makes sense for the school to continue to hold on to Deerfield for future purposes. So, for example, if there is a potential Sheehan project down the line, maybe the Deerfield could be swing space during construction for that. And at the point that the school decides that it no longer has a school purpose for Deerfield, then the building will revert back to town control. And then it will be up to the town to decide how to, what purpose to use Deerfield for. I believe the select board has formed a subcommittee to look at this issue. So ultimately, it will be up to the town, the select board and the town residents, what happens to the Deerfield property. I will add that the MSBA does not look favorably on towns that flip the properties for profit. So I think that if the town wanted to sell the property to a developer, that might cause an issue with the MSBA reimbursement grant. But that is the only caveat that I know of in terms of, I think, municipal use is something that the town would look at for Deerfield.
Thank you. Thank you.
And by the way, it is addressed to an extent in the comprehensive plan that was recently prepared that discussed the the area of the comprehensive plan that Kate Wynn and I worked on and others. So anyway, so that there's been discussion of if it were to be converted in the future, what the preferred uses would be from the community standpoint.
Thank you, John. So having had the opportunity of the members to comment on the plan, the chair would be looking for a motion from a member to continue our meeting to October 13th, 2021. Can I have such a motion?
I would so move,
Chairman.
Okay. Having a motion and seconded, Karen, would you mind calling the roll? Well, the chair will call the roll. Vesna?
Aye.
Todd?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you, Mr. Chairman of the Planning Board. Chris, we appreciate the time to be involved in this what looks like a fantastic project for the town and our lovely children.
Excellent work to the design team. You guys did a fantastic job.
Unbelievable.
Definitely.
At this point, the Conservation Commission is going to go to our regularly scheduled meeting. If all the members could get on that Zoom, it would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, and just be clear to others in the audience who are waiting for their hearing, that is on the other agenda note. It is a different Zoom meeting, so there's a separate Zoom link to that meeting.
Okay.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
everyone.
much.
Yeah, goodbye.
Bye.
So at this time, I guess I'll give planning board members opportunity to ask any other questions before we open up to public comment. Okay, don't see any. So I have one typed in the Q&A and I'll read it and the applicant can address it. It's from Fran Fusco. It says, what traffic mitigation is planned for the neighborhood, specifically Pine Lane, Schaefer Avenue, and School Street? How many buses are now traveling this route, and how many more are anticipated if the new school is approved? Currently, the buses that travel the neighborhood are traveling extremely fast for this densely populated neighborhood. If one of you could address those concerns, that would be helpful.
Brian Zamoka from.
Oh,
go ahead. I was going to say.
Just
go ahead, Maya.
Go, Brian. You go. You go.
No, I forgot what I was going to say. Currently, there's no traffic mitigation plan. Our traffic study basically showed that there's no need for one. The traffic is operating along Gay Street, sufficiently now, and it will in the future. With specific to the abutting streets, I do not believe we're proposing anything. But am I mistaken?
No, that's correct.
Yep. So I think, and Emily, maybe you can speak to the buses.
I can, yeah. So there currently is one bus that serves Hanlon, and there are currently 5 buses that serve Deerfield. I do believe that once the schools consolidate in the Hanlon site, then there may be more Deerfield students who might choose bus transportation. That's potentially a possibility. But I don't think that it would be, a significantly larger number of buses. And, some of the buses that are going down Gay Street right now are, it's because the buses are actually housed at the high school and they cut across town to go do the Downey routes.
And I also think that specifically with Pine Lane, Schaefer Ave, and School Street, knowing where those streets are located, if there are additional buses coming from Deerfield, they likely would not be coming from that direction. They would be coming down Gay Street from Westwood Center.
Correct.
So I don't think they wouldn't go into those neighborhoods.
Right. That's right.
Emily, how many buses did you say are servicing Deerfield now?
Right now, there's 5 buses that are serving Deerfield.
So we may have 5 plus the one Hanlon, plus maybe 1 or 2 more. We
Maybe
might
a
have
couple more. Right.
about 8 at most.
Yeah. I mean, that we designed the queuing area so that it could handle a maximum of 13, but I don't think that we would need that much queuing space.
Yeah,
Okay.
so hopefully the buses, the idea is that the buses would never linger on Gay, right? They'll pull right into the bus lane and all be queuing there.
On the property.
On the
Right.
property, yes.
Okay.
Right.
We have another question typed into the Q&A part. It's from David Deal. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. It says, what other planting will you be using on Laura Lane? I think we may have touched on that, but maybe we could speak specifically.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. So right now, the goal is, as everyone has talked about, we're trying to preserve as much of the existing woods that is there. And on both sides of the school property that face that street, there's a mixture of deciduous and also some evergreen trees. So what we're proposing currently on the plans is that we're owning a certain amount of additional evergreen planting. Given that we aren't disturbing anything, it will be what I envision, and what we've done for other neighbors on other projects before, is that we really walk the site and really think about, where those buffer plantings really want to be or need to be. We can show something on a plan. It may be helpful to reserve the actual location of those and walk it with the community members. Once you see the building and where those, but there was another comment that came in through written comments about adding more material for number 7, I believe. So we'll look at including some additional material for those neighbors. Our hope is that the existing woods will be maintained, and then we'll supplement with currently it's evergreen trees, but I also think some understory plantings might be even more beneficial based on, just sometimes trees grow tall and then they only, they don't block sort of the view from the front yard.
Okay, thank you. And I guess at this point, I would remind those, any people who have called in to press *9 to indicate if you have a question. Abby, are you seeing any participants through the phone?
No, there's no one participating by phone. So there's a couple people with their hands raised.
Okay, sorry, I had that part cut off. I do see 3 people. And at the top of the list is Stephen Olenoff. You could take him off mute. That'd be great. Mr. Olenoff, you're on mute. There you go.
Thank you. Steve Olenoff, 52 Glandor Road. And I did send in a number of comments, and a few of the questions have been answered. But my big concern is still, it's the access to the trail to Lower Woods. The current plans, the pedestrians coming from down Washington Street, coming down Gay Street from Washington Street, it's very well laid out for them. But from the other direction, pedestrians coming up the sidewalk from Pine Lane, it's not at all. So there's no real connection there. And the tendency will be for people to want to go around the left side of the school to get to that trail. And I was wondering if that could be accommodated by starting off at the fire lane and then switching over outside the fence, creating a trail that way would be one option. Otherwise, I don't see how people are really going to get through or want to go through, having to go all the way just to get to where that trail is. Another thing I just want to point out quickly is, because it was brought up before about Laura Lane, there is a connection, a pedestrian connection from Laura Lane to the trail, but there is no connection between the trail and the school. Currently, there is a sidewalk. It just ends in the middle of nowhere. If that sidewalk could be extended to Laura Lane, I think that would be a good thing. But my big question is, what about accommodating the pedestrians coming to the trail from the south?
I can answer that. So, Steve, we did look at that. I think that for safety reasons, we do not want people to access the trail from the left side of the building. That's where the playground is. We don't want it, and it's for safety, not just for people on the trail accessing the playground, but also for little kids. We really need to make sure that that is as secure as possible. And if there's a trail there, even if it's outside the fence, the fear is that there might be people passing through there. We actually purposely moved the trail that we're building further from the playground into the woods because of safety, because of parents' safety concerns. So I think we really would encourage residents, and even though it's a little bit longer to walk, but to walk up to the new trailhead, the designated trailhead, which is on the north side of the property, and access Lowell Woods that way. There also will be ample parking. If people don't want to make that walk, they could park and access the trailhead there. But we really are trying to avoid having a trail next to the play area for safety purposes.
Well, I did put in, so I did put in a small section of sidewalk you needed from the bus entrance to that trail from that direction. But I'm not sure if people are going to go up there. The tendency would be to come through the main driveway entrance and walk around the sidewalk. So at least make that connection there at Laura Lane.
And I believe we are, right, Rob? There will be a
Not shown on the
connection.
plan that I'm looking at.
Then I'm not sure I understand the
There
connection.
currently, there isn't, the path extends from where it does now on Laura Lane, but it goes right into the proposed relocation of the path. I think it would be easy enough, to add a section.
Yes. See that sidewalk ends right there with, just below the arrow, that sidewalk ends.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So instead of going
Yes.
from the trailhead at the beginning of the property, you're suggesting we add just a little spur there to connect those.
Right, and that would, students might, the teacher might want to take the students out for a hike down the trail. That would be the connection that they would use. And that would connect the Laurel Lane neighborhood to the school also.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly take a look at that.
Good, okay. And again, signage is important so that if you want people to go where you want them to go, the signs have to be laid out.
Yeah.
Even then they may not, but you definitely need those signs. So I will send in further comments on that with more details. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, next person with their hand raised I see is Peter Schuler. Hello, Mr. Schuler.
Hi, everyone. My name is Peter Schuler, and I live at 779 Gay Street. I'm in a butter directly across from the new proposed school. Second everyone's opinion that the plan is certainly well thought out, and I know there's been a lot of hard work, and I commend the school building committee for holding lots of meetings to try to get input from town residents. I do have several concerns still with this plan, and they may be too detailed for tonight's meeting, but things like, for example, landscaping. We talked about and we've heard how we're trying to put buffers in place, particularly at the end of Laura Lane, along Laura Lane and along Gay Street. But when you look at the landscaping plans, most of those buffers that are shown are in the alternate phase, not in the base phase. And I'm concerned that after spending $88 million, we're going to run out of money, and those kinds of buffers are going to be left out of the project.
I can respond to that.
Okay. And we talked about this just 2 weeks ago at your meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, the all the landscaping that are along the buffer with Laura Lane are in the base bid.
That doesn't look the way they're shown on the landscape permit plan.
Okay,
There's
you
two
know,
particular symbols. The
Yeah,
dark symbol for the base and the clear symbol for alternate, and they're all alternate.
Yeah, I thought, Rob, we were going to take a look at that, Rob and Deb, and confirm that they were consistent with what, I don't know if that's been done.
Our current plans, and this might have happened, you know, the permit set went in weeks ago before we've made our final DD set, but in the final sort of design development set, those are in the base bid. In fact, I think I even increased the amount. We have some evergreen trees on that face of the school that we also included in the base bid. But you're correct, along Gay Street, I think we alternated shade trees there, that they alternate base bid and alternate, so that there's a decent amount still in the base bid for the shade trees along the field in Gay Street.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's probably what happened, Deb. Between the time that we submitted the set to the permitting for the land use committee and today, you know, I mean, these are works in progress. You know, we continue to refine them, and when we see things, we change them and revise them. And in fact, you know, we still have 7 months left of development of the drawings.
That's true, but we're going to vote on this in less than 3 weeks at town meeting.
I
I
understand. I totally understand, and we will address that in the next round. You know, we have a continuation of this.
Can we send what we could do is send Peter what's included in the base bid according to the 100% DD drawing, so that Peter can have that in his hand. Peter, would that be okay?
Yeah, that would be fine. The other thing that we talked about 2 weeks ago was this additional chain link fence you've told us was going to be installed around the property to buffer between the fire access trail. But again, in none of the drawings, either the civil site plan or the landscape permit plan, that fence isn't shown. And I just don't understand. Are we voting on what's in the plans in 3 weeks, or are these things just going to be added later after we've voted?
So we do have fencing in the civil drawings, and you know, we, like I said, this is a snapshot in time. We're at a design development phase. We have another 7 months of development of the drawings, and so.
But Rob, if you have it in your DD set and it's in the base bid, what we could do is just simply send the drawing showing that, and that, because that's already in there. There's no argument.
Sounds like an updated is all I need.
That's correct.
Great. On the fire access, the new fire access trail, there's no details been shown about that. It appears from the scaling that it's about a 10-foot wide trail. Can you tell us the trees that are all being cut down to make that trail, what happens to them? Are they removed? What happens to tree stumps? Is there going to be grading and bulldozing in order to make the trail accessible? There's been no details at all about that trail other than to show the line. So, and that's included in the cost, right?
Our intention is to essentially replicate the existing fire access trail in kind. So, you know, it's taking trees down and creating a path there that matches the existing fire access trail that's there.
So stumps will be removed to allow the trucks to get down there, for example?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Great. The last thing is maybe for the planning board. I don't know if they can address this, but I am concerned with the 2 large fields on Gay Street that eventually someone is going to want to put lights on those fields to accommodate nighttime play. And I've asked school building committee about how that could be limited or prevented, and have not really gotten a convincing answer or any answer.
Peter, we have told you, I mean, that's not in our budget. We are not lighting the fields, but
I understand that.
I can't really promise you anything more than that.
Is there
right?
anything at the planning board level that can put a restriction on future placement of lights for nighttime play? Is there any way? It's sort of a question. I'm not trying to demand something. I'm just asking, is there a way at this point in the project that could be limited so we don't go through a big issue 4 years down the road when some group wants to come in and put, big lights on there and run sports events till 9 or 10 o'clock at night? Is there any way that can be brought into the plan to prevent that?
So Abby, I think he's asking if we make that a condition of this particular project, which I don't believe we can.
Okay. That's just a concern.
Right. The planning board's reviewing the project before them. If something were to be proposed in the future, that would require another one of these public hearings, a limited environmental impact design review, and we would go through a similar public hearing process, and the planning board would review it at that time. But right now, the planning board's reviewing what's proposed at this time.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you, Mr. Schuler. Next question. I have one more hand raised so far, and it is Rania Kelly. If I pronounced your name correctly.
Hello. Yes, you pronounced it correctly.
Hi.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, Rania Kelly, 20 Blue Hill Drive. I'm actually co-chair on the Commission for Disability in Westwood. So we did submit our concerns, which Dave so wonderfully brought up earlier. Thank you, Dave. And I just wanted to say, the architects obviously did a wonderful job. I don't think any of us would say otherwise. I actually have sat in the architect's shoes in meetings like this before. I come from an architectural background. And we do still, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because I know we're having an accessibility meeting with them. But we do still have a lot of concerns about the site design, the handicap parking placements, also like big things like you guys aren't showing where the seating is for the fields, which obviously pedestrians need access to. There are also spots near those fields that don't have sidewalks. And sidewalks are important for people in wheelchairs, of course, but also people who have young children in strollers, people who have elderly, who have walking canes and stuff like that. So we do have more, we think the site just still needs to address some of the accessibility issues for those with disabilities and for access for pedestrians. And I'll leave the details for the next meeting, but I wanted to say thank you for Dave for bringing that up.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, planning board members? Give you one last shot. Abby, do you have any other comments for staff, from staff, I should say?
No, not at this time. I think most of them were touched on. You had a number of comments from various other staff and boards and committees that I provided to the applicants team. So my recommendation would be for you to continue this hearing to your next meeting on Tuesday, October 18th, 12th. Tuesday, October 12th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. And then I'll follow up with the applicant, project team, and they can work on providing responses for you in advance of that meeting.
Okay, Mr. Fitzgerald, does that sound good to you?
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay, because I think, the board is aware of a lot of comments that were made, and we, for interest of time, and tonight's the opening night, we did not want to delve into the minutia, but I think the next meeting, we would like some of those things addressed outwardly.
Yes. Yep. Our plan is to go through all of those and address each one, and we will submit any revisions or responses to those in a follow-up submission.
Okay, great. Thank you. I see no one else with their hand raised. Abby, I'm assuming no one has come in on phone since then?
That's right.
Okay, and no new questions in the Q&A. So With all of that being said, I will take a motion to continue.
So moved.
Okay, can we make the motion a specific,
I
continue
make
to
a
a specific
motion.
date and time?
I make a motion to continue this public hearing to October 12th at 7 p.m.
Via Zoom.
Via Zoom. Via Zoom.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. I see Kate. Is she back with us for this vote? I see she's here, but muted. No video. So if she's here, I'll call on her and see if we can get her. But we'll take a roll call vote for the continuance. Tom.
Aye.
Ellen.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Kate, are you with us? Not necessary. I vote aye as well. Will be continued till October 12th meeting. Thank you very much for a great presentation.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone,
you.
for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good night.
Right.
And the planning board will move on with its agended items. The next one that we're going to talk about is Green Nectar Juice Bar, 911 to 929 High Street in EIDR. We got everyone here. Abby, is the applicant here?
Yes, I'm bringing in the applicant and the project architect right now.
Okay. I see, Abby, there's an attendee with a hand raised. Do you know if that's pertaining to this?
Oh.
Or the previous? It wasn't there before we continued.
I'm not sure. I know, Gigi, your hand is up. This applicant is the next one on High Street after this.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on. Sorry. Vincent or whomever would like to address the board first, you have the floor.
Good evening. Yes, my name is Robert Reifeis. I'm an architect down here in Plymouth, and I've been working with Vincent on the location that was previously, I think it was a dog grooming.
Yes, it was a groomer, dog groomer.
There we go. Sorry, I don't do this very often. So I've been assisting Vincent initially in trying to develop more of the plan internally for this location. Vincent then reached out to me to kind of help him get to where we are this evening. We provided some plans, an exterior elevation, a previous site plan that Abby was good enough to post and create some photos of the site over time. It appears it hasn't changed very much in terms of number of parking and or the layout. I believe that was a concern that wanted to be addressed. And I think some of the comments came back. We're looking to address the number of parking spaces as well as either restripe and or repave and restripe that parking lot. To that end, in terms of if the site can be laid out to be more efficient and or increase the number of parking spaces, Vincent and I just recently, earlier this week, discussed about taking on a civil or site engineer to assist Vincent with that portion of the project directly. So my personal experience with this project has been more the interior and trying to get an efficient layout for Vincent's store. But I'm here to kind of assist him in answering any questions that you might have or what we can do to mitigate any concerns or how we can address them going forward.
Okay. I think we need to hear from the applicant about what your plan is. And we have what's submitted, but we'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, so we're planning on opening a juice, primarily serving juice drinks there, as well as like acai bowls, avocado toast, things like that, and healthy snacks. It's going to be geared towards more healthy food and things of that nature, but mostly like juice smoothies from fruit and things like that.
Okay.
We plan on having 15 seats inside the place. And I believe there's adequate parking. We have I think there's 68 spaces in the lot. And yeah, I think there's ample room for us to operate.
Okay, Abby, do you have anything to add to what we've just heard?
In your packet, you had some comments from the various staff. This project would also require a submission as you move further along, a submission to the health department for them to review the food plans, including if you have any like unpasteurized juices. You also need a license for a common victuals license from the select board. The building commissioner had a concern about the number of parking spaces. He thought, so this proposed use requires one more parking space than the previous tenant, which was the pet care facility. So 5 spaces for this use, but he thought, including all the other uses, it exceeded the parking. You know, the applicant provided some figures based on his review of all the other tenants, and we estimated the staff. I thought there was about 48 spaces, or close to 50 required, and there were 68 total, but that includes some in the back behind the building. And then the only other comments I had was, generally the planning board's practice is try to upgrade any make drainage improvements when applications come before you. We don't have any specific proposal with this, but that is a standard practice of the planning board. But I'd at least recommend repaving and restriping the parking lot. Those parking spaces where the paint is almost completely gone, so it would help to at least more clearly identify the parking spaces.
Yes, we're definitely planning on redoing the parking lot, not necessarily right away, but something we're going to do maybe in the spring after winter. It's something I discussed with my dad, who's the property owner. My grandfather was previously the owner, and we just kind of took it over. He passed away about 4 months ago. So we're definitely looking to make some facelifts to the building, but I don't know, is a tenant usually liable, or contingent on building renovations? But as far as the things with the Board of Health, those are things we're in the process of doing. We just wanted to go through this and get approved first before I get my the dumpster and all that stuff situated. But I've looked into those, and I've reached out to Karen regarding that.
Now, Abby, you talk about the drainage situation. Is that more to do with regrading the existing parking lot, or are we talking about actually doing calculations of what the runoff is and trying to mitigate anything that's going into either the existing sewer system, or are you looking for some underground kind of systems?
The planning board's practice has been trying to at least make stormwater improvements when an application becomes before them. And commonly capturing the roof runoff is kind of the least expensive way to add gutters and downspouts, trying to capture at least 1 inch of runoff.
Okay.
So that's kind of the most common approach,
Right.
but we don't have any information here on what's existing today at this location. So I don't have a clear recommendation, but that's usually what the planning board tries to do.
Those are definitely things I can get done moving forward, but is that something that we're going to have to do for me to open the juice bar, put in new drainage, put in a new parking lot?
And I
If
think
you're,
some of these questions are coming, I think, in terms of, the restaurant or the juice bar itself is only 900 square feet versus the overall site. So I'm just wondering if, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're putting the onus on one small tenant to deal with the overall site issues, is that kind of a normal practice, or is it just because nothing's come up at this location for quite some time that it's been overlooked for many years, that you're looking to get some of these things done? And at some point, financially, when does it become, a burden or a hardship for something that's only 900 square feet versus the overall site location? So I think, I would, if I were Vincent, I'd be looking for clarification on that in terms of what the expectations are versus a reality for what he's trying to do in terms of a small shop versus going into a large, mall, strip mall, if you will, there in the town.
right, so the applicant would want to agree to exactly what, the applicant should usually agree and would come up with a design proposal for the planning board and you to review. And you would want to know what you're getting into before you agree to it. So right now we don't have a proposal. So the applicant doesn't know what that financial cost would be at this time.
It would probably be more than the juice bar.
I appreciate where you're coming from, and that is our practice to look into the possibility of making this site a better one with regard to the drainage and certainly the parking. I think a real hurdle here is the parking. We have a comment made by the building inspector who indicates that we are at a parking insufficiency for this. And then we have a parking analysis given to us that indicates that we should be fine. But I think we are kind of pushing it right to the limit, but I understand, and we've had other applicants in here in other situations where if we don't make some consideration on these older built facilities, then we're going to have a lot of vacant places, and that's not what we want. To me, I haven't seen any evidence that we would be short parking spaces here based on what I'm seeing from Abby on this parking analysis. I know there's a comment by the building inspector, but so far I haven't seen any concrete proof that says we're going to be short on a number of spaces here. And it seems to me that that's the overwhelming issue here. And so I'm only one planning board member. I won't pretend to speak for all. So I think we need to hear from other board members on how you feel about the parking as it's been presented. Yes, Tom.
Mr. McKenzie, how many employees will this juice bar have?
2 to 4. Primarily 2 to 4. During busier hours, you may do 4, but we're thinking 2 or 3 mostly.
And have you seen their business plan?
We've created one. I don't think we've shared it with you guys.
Well, I'm sympathetic with you and with the chairman's comments, but I think you're treating this very, very casually, and I'm not in a position to vote for it tonight.
Ellen, you have your hand raised?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Sorry. Ellen, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I guess on this topic, I was just looking at the parking analysis again, and I guess one concern I have is that in this parking analysis, it lists that one space is vacant currently. So I guess I would be wondering, depending on what kind of tenant eventually goes in there, how that would impact the parking situation. I think it's hard to say with an empty 900 square foot building that everything's fine. That just jumped out at me as there's a vacancy listed in there. So
the other restaurants,
I'm not sure.
they have a lot of seating, like Blue Orchid, I believe it has 48 seats, but they probably do 95% takeout. There's never anyone really eating in there whenever all just takeout. The same with the pizza place, Westwood Pizza, that's primarily takeout as well. Both establishments don't even have their tables set up right now. They're doing just takeout.
But the requirement is based on number of tables that they had at the time. It's a formulaic approach that we have to address. How they do business during COVID right now is an entirely, we hope, temporary situation.
Absolutely.
So,
As far as going into it kind of casually, we've already spent a great deal of money having drawings, looking into all the what's going to take to make this juice bar, and I think we're prepared to do what needs to be done to make it successful and something that the town, it's an asset to the town.
And if I may, Tom, to address your concerns, as I said, Vincent and myself, I've recommended an engineer. Unfortunately, the engineer that had done the previous drawings some years ago has either retired or gone out of business. The hope was that a better system for the overall parking lot could be developed that might actually increase the number of spaces and or at least make it more efficient as well. In terms of the timing of that, I don't know. This has just been a recent discussion that we've had with the site engineer, the civil engineer.
Yep.
So
I reached out to him already this week, and we
Okay.
discussed potentially
right.
meeting over there next week to start.
And Mr. Chair, if I could address your comment, I guess the question is, how do we validate the discrepancies between what the building inspector is looking for in terms of number of spots and what we think we have based on current occupancy and use of the existing stores that are within that development there?
Well, I think we would just need more information from the building inspector.
Okay.
His comment to staff was, we are not sufficient.
Right.
Abby, did you want to comment on that?
Right. I did include in that legal advertisement and the public hearing notice a waiver from the minimum parking requirement, So the planning board has the opportunity to look at this site here, what's proposed, look at this use and the existing uses. And if you find it's adequate, you can grant a waiver to allow the parking to be proposed as is. So you have that option of the reducing the parking requirements. If you look at the timing and uses of the other spaces on the property.
Okay. Is that something, Abby, that could be decided this evening, or is that something that would still require some additional legwork on myself, the site engineer, and or Vincent's part in order to kind of clarify what the parking situation is?
If the planning board feels that they have enough information tonight, they could make that decision, or if they would like more information, they could continue this to a future meeting. So it'll be, that's what the planning board members will be discussing right now as you go forward.
Okay. To that end, I do know Vincent, when the issue came up that maybe we don't have enough, was to actually eliminate numbers of seating tables. I don't know if you actually go by actual square footage of the space available to determine what that seating use would be, or do you actually count tables and chairs to make that determination of occupancy use?
For this use, it's based on the number of seats and a number of employees. So the number of seats, not the actual square footage.
Okay, all right. So to that end, as I said, Vincent was willing to take away, one or two top tables in order to meet that requirement, and then possibly build that back up if the site can be manipulated to be favorable for additional parking.
So Abby, what would that do? Your analysis indicates 8 spaces with 15 seats. If you take away two tops, that's down to 11 seats. All right. What does that do for our spaces requirement?
Well, it's one parking space for every four seats.
Yep.
So I guess you need to eliminate 4 seats to.
Oh, that's two tops.
Yeah.
But that was as Joe said, but Abby, you said you did a calculation yourself and you saw that there was an extra, how many spots?
My estimate was about 48 required parking spaces.
With all the businesses. So that leaves about 10 or 20. Well, with the spaces in the back, 20 spaces, I think. I have it right here.
I believe it's 19.
19.
The difference. We do have, just to enter it into the record, we do have 2 public comments, and both address the issue of parking. So I just wanted to make that point. Yes, Dave, I was going to call on you. Sorry.
So I think that we want to, so I kind of thinking of the big picture here. I mean, we want to see this area become more successful. I just drove over there this afternoon to take a look, and I live right down the street, but I don't know how many parking spaces there are because it's just a bumpy field of asphalt, you know. It's when I've driven the 10th of a mile over there to pick up something from the Blue Orchid, I mean, it's hard to tell what's going on there. Like it's so, I think that if it's going to support more business, then there needs to be a plan for how the parking can work. I'm sympathetic to the idea, like as Abby noted, as Chris, as you were saying, I think like there are different times. It makes sense. You got takeout pizza, you got the takeout Chinese restaurant, Dunkin' Donuts kind of conflicts, but I think you can make the numbers work. Like I wouldn't want to say that you have to scale a business down to so small that it's like, you know, you're kind of just, you're limiting what can be successful there. So I think I'm open to the idea if there were a plan for how to make the parking work. And that might, what we'd like to see is that place revitalized because it's not a very inviting place right now. There's the animal clinic is gone. This place is vacant.
They're actually still a tenant, but they moved their shop, so they're technically still renting, but they are not using the space for the next coming years.
So I mean, what would help me is if there were a plan to say, okay, we're gonna fix up the parking lot and restripe it so that it looks like people will know where to park. Maybe there's a plan that employees should be parking in those back spaces, kind of behind where the 2 buildings come together.
I definitely agree. That's something we're gonna do. We want to update the sign in the front. We want to put in a new parking lot, but these are things we definitely want to do. It's just I don't want the business to be held contingent for these this work that could be more than me building an ice cream shop.
And I get it too, that it's like it's asking a lot for one tenant to like fund the revitalization of a shopping plaza. But you know, we've had, when we looked at the monument company in Islington, they came back to us with plans for, we could put a parking space here, we could do this, we could arrange it this way, we could, you know, we kind of had a drawing of what was of a plan, and we looked at that and said, we'd like to see a business here, we'd like to see something, and this one could probably work, even though technically it doesn't match up to the numbers. And I think that's the kind of thing that we need here. And to Tom's point, though, it just seems like we're having to figure it out on the fly tonight. So what I would think we'd want to do is probably continue this and have you come back with say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pave the parking lot over differently. I don't know if you have to create a lot of little tiny parking spaces to increase the number, but right now it's just not very usable, I don't think. And so what's the design of the parking lot going to look like? You know, are you able to share the spaces with the other tenants? Is that clear? Are they entitled to their spaces? I don't know. Like if we have a plan for that, because I'd like to see what happens when the next business comes along. Then they would, it shouldn't be all on the first tenant to do everything, but we need to be able to see a path to revitalizing this. So that's my thoughts. I don't know if anybody, other board members want to elaborate or clarify.
Yes, Kate.
Thank you. My apologies to everybody. I'm sorry that I was pulled away from the meeting, and I'm glad to be back. And I'm so happy to be able to speak to this. I'm very excited at the idea of us getting this juice bar. I really, really want your business to be successful. But I want to be able to park in front of Westwood Pizza and have my kids walk across the parking lot safely to go get something at the juice bar. And I think that there's a lot of work to be done in this lot to make that really safe and support everybody's businesses being successful. So I'm kind of echoing what Dave said, and also just want to highlight I'm really supportive of this business. I agree with you. It's a great opportunity, this plaza, but not in its current state. And the other thing about this area, I mean, I've got teenagers. The other thing about this particular plaza is it's very attractive to teen drivers, and we want to make it super, super safe for them and everybody around them when they want to go get their juice. As coming out of high school, I mean, it's an important place, and I am excited about it.
Really. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. To that end, these are all very appreciative comments, and I do wish we could have gotten a civil engineer involved in this earlier. I do hope, though, that many of you have seen the existing plan. As I said, it was done back in 2004, 2002. The intent, I think, initially, even if it was, quickly striped before the winter for this to get in, and then, as Vincent said, try to address, repaving it, and then seeing if we can't get additional parking in there. David, as you said, kind of trying to find out places where, oh, thank you, Abby. So this one did have a count that was showing, 68 parking spaces. I did like the comment. Would be my suggestion as well to have the employees park in the top left corner there, so they're not parked out in front of their establishments. I'm sure, as you frequent it more than I do, that those middle stripes just north of you, if you will, of Dunkin' Donuts are basically non-existent. So that probably gets underutilized with people parking wherever they feel comfortable to. And I think there's other ways to address it, I would hope, with the input of a civil engineer and, to move forward for this. And I think, if we hold Vincent and, his father to the ownership of it, that, some of all of your concerns can be addressed. And I think if we could come back within the next, week or two of even just really hammering out the number of parking spaces, then, I'd like to see this move forward. If I only said that because there's, I know Vincent has been working on this for quite some time, and then between COVID getting things stalled, et cetera, like that, and when it doesn't seem like it's a good time to open up a business, it's been kind of put on the back burner. But I think now that things are making a turn for the better, I think he would like to go full steam ahead as much as he can, as quickly as he can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think from what I'm hearing, the planning board in general doesn't have an issue with this particular business moving into this particular spot.
Okay, good.
It's unfortunate that the spot you're looking to go into, it has been allowed to be dilapidated, and that's what's drawing this. So if you have any influence on your landlord to maybe make some improvements to this, then perhaps some of these questions would be readily answered, and we wouldn't have to bring in a civil engineer or things like that. So we want to see businesses thrive, especially in our already established developed areas. So, but these are real concerns. We have neighboring people who are referencing existing problems that are happening. So we're very mindful of parking, and it's perhaps unfortunate that your application is now coming before us, and the issue of parking has come up with numbers. So our eyes are focused on this particular situation. I think it's unfair to imply that this one, as Mr. Reifus indicated, to put the burden of repaving this entire lot on one tenant, where everyone's going to get. That's my feeling. I'd like to see it done, but I don't think it's fair to put it on all on one tenant to do this. So, and I think it's not entirely analogous to what Mr. Atkins brought up, because that was one building, one tenant. This is many tenants in one building. So I'd like to see the owner of this property keep up the appearances and make things safe. And parking is a safety issue. So, and I think the board has kind of collectively said, this is an unsafe area existing, and you're trying to move into it. So that's what's bringing our attention to it.
Okay. But that is something I've discussed with the landlord and is in the future.
Okay.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Who was the landlord?
Vincent McKenzie, Sr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're not asking one tenant to do all of this. We're asking the owner of the property to do it.
But he has no involvement in the business. But I totally understand where you're coming from.
Thank you.
We're separating the two. I'm separate. In my mind, I'm separating the two. I understand there's a separation there. All right. Any other things we need to address, Abby, on this? No.
And so it sounds like you're looking to continue the hearing to get more of a park.
I'm getting the sense from the board that we're not prepared to vote definitively on this as it sits right now before us. And I don't want to speak for the board, but if somebody wants to make a motion to continue and we get a second and it passes, then we'll continue. And we'll
If Abby says what date we should continue to, I'm happy to make that motion unless Ellen wants to speak first.
Ellen? Yeah.
Before we move to continue, there is a hand up in the attendees.
Thank you very much. I had slid it over, so I missed. Before we do that, I do see Rodney Grace has her hand up. Hello?
Yes, it is. Sorry.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi. Sorry, I thought thought you forgot me. But anyways, just a quick comment. That I live on Pond Street and corner of Pond and Church, and when I look down there, I see cars parked on Church Street from the businesses. Now the town had to put a sign on one side of Church Street because they were parked on both sides for no parking. So there is a parking problem. Now I have no problem with the business, but they're asking for relief. He is asking for relief about the size. That's what I have a problem with. The same thing, and the only comment I make about the owner of the property, when Diamond Nail, one of the tenants, wanted some relief from the zoning board about parking to expand their business, the owner of the property, I assume this was in 2013, May 15th, and if you go to the zoning board, it's in the minutes. I got their minutes right here. And the owner acknowledged problems with the parking and the inefficiency thereof due to the surrounding businesses across the street and from Dunkin' Donuts using his lot. Now that's the owner speaking against relief of parking for Diamond Nail. Now his son or grandson, wherever, wants to do the same thing. Diamond Nail wants relief the same way Diamond Nail wanted. And he's not coming here to express the inefficiency of the parking the same way I feel, and most of the tenants, any tenants or abutters feel the same way. There's not enough parking because—
I talked to Diamond Nails and he's excited about the project.
What's that? Sorry.
I've spoke to the owner of the business of Diamond Nails, and he was excited about this project.
Oh no, I'm sorry about the project. It's just that asking relief with these bylaws, the zoning board turned them down unanimously because—
Mr. Grace, I don't believe this applicant has asked for relief. I believe Ms. McKay brought that up as a possible route that the planning board could take. but he has not requested relief from parking. We're
Oh.
trying to figure out what his parking needs are and how they fit in with the existing parking situation there.
Well, I was just concerned about the waiver and the number, because in that waiver, it says that you have to meet certain restrictions and there are certain things about meeting what the intent of the bylaws are. And I don't know. I like the idea that you put forth, that you said, open the business, but put it within the size that's allowed by the town bylaws without a waiver. If we can do that.
I believe that's the end we're working towards.
Okay. Oh, okay. Because hopefully in the future, I mean, for the whole plaza, I'd like to see it successful, but maybe it could be some kind of master plan that will relieve parking, on-street parking, because you have on-street parking on Church Street. There's on-street parking, which by businesses, which is, I don't think the planning board had that intent. So you already have that now. So
right. And there are other businesses in that area that may be contributing to Church Street parking, not just those businesses.
I understand that, but the bottom line is, if you have that problem now, you don't want to contribute it to, because even the Mr. Vincent McKinsey, is it? He said he blamed Dunkin' Donuts. Now he said, and this is the one, and now they're saying there's plenty of space for Dunkin' Donuts and them. But back in 2013, the owner of the property complained about Dunkin' Donuts using the parking spaces. And well, that's in the zoning board. That's what the zoning board determined. And they did that in May 15, 2013.
Okay. All right. Any other concerns that we need to address tonight, Mr. Grace?
Not for me. Like I said, I welcome the business. It's just that parking is a problem, and I would hope the planning board can take in a master plan about the area, rather than this patch thing about, and also, allowing it to get worse without any kind of master plan for the area.
Okay. I appreciate your thoughts. This is our first meeting on this matter, so we are working towards that end. We always try to address parking when it becomes a problem, when we're notified of it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Abby, any phone call participants? No? Okay.
So this is, maybe up to the applicant, how much time you need to be able to review together with your team and with your father, if you're able to make any improvements. It sounds like the planning board is looking for more information on the detailed parking. So the planning board has meetings coming up scheduled for October 12th, October 25th, November 9th. So I guess the applicant needs time to be able to review, respond, and get something back to the planning board in at least a week in advance of the meeting. So October 12th might be a little soon.
Yeah,
the next one after that would be October 25th, which is a Monday.
Could I talk to my dad? Maybe he can talk to you as well, and maybe discuss what we went over tonight and some steps we need to take to make it more up to par.
So Abby, why don't we move it to our second meeting in October, and if we need to continue it further from there, we'll do that.
What was the one in November, Abby, please?
November 9th.
Okay, thank you.
Would you rather we continue it to the 9th, Mr. Ryan?
Well, I'd like to get together with the civil and site engineer, if that's okay with Vincent, to kind of see what we can do to either, as I said.
Understand. We're just looking for a date that you're comfortable with.
Right, all right.
So what was it, the 9th, and then what was the date after that? I'm sorry.
I don't think we went after that.
Yeah, the 11th, 11/9 is the latest date offered.
Can we put that on? I can reach out to you tomorrow.
You can put it on a date, and if you're not prepared, you can kick it out.
We continue it again.
Let's do that.
So you want to continue to the 9th of November?
Okay, so motion to continue to November 9th meeting.
Via and date time. via Zoom. Sorry, the
Via
motion.
Zoom, the whole thing, sorry, to continue to the planning board meeting, November 9th via Zoom, 7 PM.
Great.
Second.
We have a
Thank you
motion
guys
and
for
a
your
second.
time.
Any further discussion? We'll take a roll call vote. Kate,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. So we'll continue till November 9th meeting, 7 PM.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
All right, Abby, thanks for all your help getting us where we are today. And thank you, everybody, for all your input. And we'll address all those concerns as best we can and hopefully get this thing going.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
your
much,
input.
gentlemen.
Yes.
All
Thank
right,
you.
have a pleasant evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good night. Okay. Next on the agenda is 229 High Street, Earth Material Movement, EIDR. Abby, can you bring us up to speed on this?
Yes, I'm just bringing in the applicant now.
Okay.
Now,
We good, Abby?
yes,
Okay. Who is presenting this evening?
we have the property owner and the project engineer is here.
Okay.
Should I share my screen or?
Can you identify yourself, please?
Hi, this is Vijay Mandan, professional engineer representing the owner Rahul Mutha and Puna Mutha.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Yeah, if you can share your screen.
Tonight we're presenting you the project at 229 High Street. The proposed project is to remove this existing house and some of the pavement and propose a new house, a new driveway along with extended driveway to the garage, a lowered garden wall in the back, and a flat and raised area, a lawn on the northern side of the property, as over here. This property is, other than why we had to submit this permit was because the amount of fill that will be placed behind this wall, it's about 12 feet at locations. It goes up to 14 feet and at the corners, and the fill that needs to be placed behind this wall increases from 1 foot over here to all the way to 14 feet up to the end of it. The owners are requesting this raise in grade for reasons of aesthetic and some design elements that they're designing this house with. We have also submitted a land disturbance permit prior to coming to planning board and successfully obtained that. So everything regarding stormwater, both during construction and post-construction, is with standards required by the town of Westwood. These are details, but this is what the project proposed work really is summarized in this sheet over here.
Okay. Is that it? I don't want to cut you off.
It's fine. That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
I will spend the time to answer questions.
Okay. Abby, is Beta still here with us? They had some comments on this, right?
Right. Beta did have some comments that we got to the applicant, and they did update the plan. We received that yesterday, and it was updated in your uploaded in your packet today. So I believe all the notes, most of them were about showing more information and adding some notes to the plan. The building department did note that a separate building permit is required for the retaining wall because of the size. The fire department was also concerned about the gravel driveway. Would the owner consider making that paved driveway? They were concerned because of the length and the distance a fire truck would have to go to get to the house.
The owner would actually prefer that, but we kept it gravel driveway for stormwater management reasons. So if we had to make it payment in the proposed plans, we would have to go back and modify our land disturbance and stormwater permit.
Okay, yeah, that's right. They did, this project did go to the Conservation Commission and got the land disturbance, the stormwater review permit recently. There was also a historical commission review for the demolition recently, and that is that delay has expired or is about to expire. And the only other comments that I would have, I prepared a draft list of conditions. They're pretty standard conditions. The truck route would be directly from High Street and should just be, most direct route, not traveling down any extra roads such as Grove Street. And then that the applicant also provide a certification that the soil is clean and doesn't contain any hazardous material. So typically the planning board asks for that to be provided and submitted to me to review prior to any soil being brought in and prior to any building permits being issued.
Separate building permit needed for that wall. It's a 14-foot drop at the corners?
Yes.
I didn't see anything on the plans that indicate any type of fencing. I assume there's fencing on top of that wall.
Yes, there's fencing.
I didn't see. And is the grade right up to the wall on the inside and then it drops, or is it below on the inside?
The grade is right up to the wall, and then there's like an initial 4-foot wall, and then the it's like bench. There's one bench.
All right. Well, I would defer to Mr. Doyle on that. It just struck me as a very high wall at 14 feet. Abby, any other items we need to consider?
No, I don't think
Everything?
so.
Okay. Planning board members, comments, questions? Yes, Tom.
How long is the driveway?
How long?
Yes.
I don't know the length of the driveway. I can go to the CAD and check that there.
Well, the only reason I ask is the fire chief expressed concern about the length of the driveway.
The whole length of the property looks like 517 feet all the way to the back. So you could kind of check to scale of that. It's probably 300 feet to the house from the road. If the back end, if that line is correct at 517 feet.
I think it's more like
I mean, linearly.
375, because this is
more.
The 100 is just for this line, starting from here up to here. This is 500, and then there's 125 here. So
okay.
yeah,
So it might be more.
375. Yep.
Thank you.
So Abby, can you comment about why they went to conservation and they suggested the gravel driveway route? And now we have the fire chief asking for paved. Do you know what happened to conservation?
Well, they usually just like to see, you know, the pervious surfaces rather than less pavement.
Okay, well, is the gravel driveway a part of this earth material movement request, special permit?
No, gravel driveway is existing.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as I sympathize with the fire department, I don't know if it's part of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, Abby, I mean, there's a lot of things you could talk about here, but isn't it, this is just an earth material movement permit,
Right. The primary purpose of this review is the transportation of the earth material to and from the property. We don't, you know, we circulate the material to the various staff so that they can look at it and give an applicant a heads up on what they may be requiring or what they looking at. But really, your primary purview is the earth to and from the site.
Right. Okay. So we've heard from the applicants. Planning board members have had an opportunity to ask a question. I'll give you one last opportunity and then, yes, Kate.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what you said, Mr. Chair, which is that 14-foot drop with a 4-foot fence, you know, just doesn't feel right. And considering that is the earth that we're talking about moving, it makes me a little reluctant until they get until I get the building permit for that. I just want to understand that that's going to be okay, that we're going to move all that earth and it's going to be okay.
Well, I think there are safeguards in place that, Abby, that's a contingent. I mean, they have to get that retaining wall. They're not going to move the earth in and then build around the wall. They're going to.
No, they can't obtain a building permit by built-in National Building Code for any wall over 4 feet without a structural engineer design. So this wall will have to be designed by a structural engineer, and the fill also will be specified, which will definitely exclude any hazardous or like a regular fill that you get from a
Is it your intention to bring fill in and then build the wall, or build the wall then fill it in?
That's not.
I think it has to go for a wall this height. It has to go in tandem. The bottom probably 4 or 5 feet is going to be filled, and then the wall's going to be built. And then because you're going to have to put geofabrics layer by layer, so it's going to go like that. But
Sorry, Kate, did I misrepresent your question?
Yes, I'm sorry. My concern is at the top of the at the top of the earth, we're having them move. There's a 14-foot drop, and that I want to make sure that the 4-foot fence, which would prevent you from coming off of that drop, is of an appropriate height. I know there's varying heights, and I'm sure this is all going to be done.
And well, I think we have to defer to Mr. Doyle on that. We have to allow him to do his job, and our job before us right now is about the movement of the earth. So I think deferring that to the building permit of the wall seems a little onerous on this particular hearing. I share your concerns about the height. I just don't know if it's something that we continue this on, waiting for Mr. Doyle to issue a building permit for the wall.
And I think this was, it's triggered by the amount. I mean, it's 5,000 cubic yards coming in, right? It's not based on, I mean, it is a change in elevation there, but mainly the requirement is triggered by the amount of fill.
Right.
And we've covered the route that the trucks will take and the standard conditions about damage to things and all. So, I mean, I don't think there's we're not including the condition about the driveway, right? I mean, that's not in this.
I don't think that's part of this.
Yeah.
So I think it's improper to weigh in on it officially, other than opinions.
And here's the fence. It's hard to see. And
right, the plan did include a fence on top of the wall.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to make everybody spend so much time on that. Thank you.
Okay, in addition to the wall, are there any other concerns about the earth material movement from planning board members? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Or public comment? Chris?
Oh, you're right. I apologize. I can't see the comments because we're in screen share. So sorry, I didn't see anyone with their hand up, or I will give the attendees an opportunity to ask a question. I assume no one's called in, Abby?
No.
Okay. Seeing no attendees with questions, I guess we can move on to a motion to accept.
I think we have, is this one of those where we have 3 things to do, right? Like we have waivers.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I apologize.
Nuts.
Yeah, we have conditions and waivers.
So let's see. So the waivers, it's because of this being in EIDR, Environmental Impact Design Review, but it's only a earth materials movement. So many of these waivers are for things that clearly don't apply. And so I'll make a motion that we grant waivers for the 5 items that I will list here because they're not relevant to this project. That's a waiver for an exterior lighting plan, a traffic study, a presentation model, renderings/drawings, and a landscaping plan.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the waiver will go roll call. Dave?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Ellen?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Next, we have our conditions. Abby, can we read through them? The standard conditions we have?
Yes. So the first one was to submit a revised plans in response to Beta's memo. We did receive the revised plans. I'll just keep that in there so I can review that with Beta. Number 2 was the existing pavement on High Street shall be protected from damage. Number 3 was the crushed stone and construction entrance shall be cleaned to prevent the dirt from being tracked on or off the property. Number 4 was the applicant shall provide certification that the fill doesn't contain any hazardous materials. Number 5 is about the construction hours, the town's general bylaws, which is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and then 7 p.m. noon to 7 p.m. on Sundays. Number 6, all trucks carrying the earth material shall go directly to the site from 109 and not travel down any of the side roads. And number 7 is the applicant's responsible for filing any other permits that may be required. Number 8, the applicant shall repair any damage that may be caused during this project in the right-of-way with prior town approval. And then a copy of the decision kept on site at all times.
Okay, thank you. There's a list of our conditions. Does anyone have anything to add? Any other conditions or comments on the conditions? Ms. Munden, do you understand the conditions? You agree to them? Okay. Accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the earth materials movement permit with the conditions that Abby listed.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll do roll call. Ellen?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
I'm aye as well. Okay. So conditions have been accepted, waivers have been accepted. You want to vote, take a motion to approve the application?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Roll call vote. Dave?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Ellen?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So thank you very much. Good luck. Hope it goes smoothly.
Thank you.
If you
Thanks.
just vote to close the public hearing.
Oh, sorry.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Roll call vote. Dave?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Ellen?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Hearing is closed. Sorry about all that, folks. My mind is clearly mush right now a little bit. Forgetting all the procedures. So we had a continuance already for the Summer Street. So that's done with the hearings for tonight, right, Abby?
Yeah.
So do we move on to the zoning amendment and zoning initiative discussion?
Depends on how you feel. I knew this meeting would be long. There isn't much to update. We did, since your last meeting, there was a housing partnership meeting where Nora and I attended and introduced the housing choice at multifamily housing MBTA requirements. So we introduced that legislation to them. They're very interested in participating in your process and weighing in. They have scheduled another meeting to meet next week on the 30th because they would like to put some ideas together to get to you for your evaluation kind of scorecard. So they want to brainstorm some ideas of what they'd like for you to consider when you're looking at locations for this new zoning. So they'll be meeting next week on the 30th, and they hope to get you some things to consider when you're looking at properties. And then also Chris and I met with the chair of the zoning board a couple weeks ago about the solar article, and they were supportive of, or the chair was supportive of the zoning board, of the planning board taking over that review of the solar arrays not mounted to houses. It gave us some ideas and suggestions and just kind of discussed the opposition that they had faced and some concerns that they had heard. I haven't yet had a chance to make any updates to the draft to circulate back to you, or also we wanted to get it back to the other zoning board members to see if they had any other thoughts on the draft.
All right. Does anybody have thoughts they've had since our last meeting regarding the multifamily or the solar? It's okay. Then we will.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
These are serious topics, and it's rather late in the evening. So it's perhaps, and I don't presume to speak for the board, but it's sometimes hard to take up serious topics this late at night, and you don't behoove yourself when you do that.
All right.
That's not a legal opinion, it's a cautionary tale.
No, I understand. And that's why I just gave up. If people had something on the top of their mind they wanted to discuss, I wanted them to have that opportunity. But nobody did, which is fine.
And the other thing I'd like to say, and not to push the meeting out further, but perhaps if you can take this up a little bit down the road, we'll get some additional feedback by people like DHCD and the Mass Municipal Lawyers Association, because the feedback has been de minimis, in my opinion, at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
So I was on the TRIC meeting today, the Three Rivers Interlocal Council, and so the other towns. I told them that we were considering this. I described the process that what we were doing, and I didn't get a lot of feedback from people. I don't think other towns are we're I think we're doing this in a good way. You know, we're methodically considering this, and I think Norwood is interested in doing some zoning around their train stations and whatnot, but it's a very different. You know, they're looking to promote development around. I don't know. I don't want to speak for them. It's getting late, but you know, they were the only ones who had any sort of anything to say about it. So I think we are doing this in a methodical, good way, and yeah, we shouldn't brainstorm about it tonight.
Dave, Norwood's also in a very different place than Westwood around affordable housing issues. So it's inherently different.
Okay, so we'll move past the public meeting portion of tonight's agenda with nothing further to add by any members. So we'll move to other business, and that looks like the minutes from August 31st. Did everyone have an opportunity to read them? Are there any edits or amendments, addendums, anything like that? Okay, so I'll take a motion to accept the meeting minutes.
I move that we accept the meeting minutes for the date for
August 31st.
August 31st.
Second.
A motion and a second. Further discussion on the minutes? Seeing none. Ellen.
Aye.
Kate.
Aye.
Tom.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Abby, the census data, is there anything in there that?
Yeah, you may have seen in your packet, I had uploaded, there's a couple sheets of some early or, some preliminary data from the 2020 census. We took a look at the number, they included the total number of housing units on there. And so we know that we have around, at least the last time the state DHCD has done their subsidized housing inventory, we had 598 units. So with that, we know that we're still above the 10% minimum requirement. We also know that there's some that still need to be added to that the state's count, because we have the two new ones at at the Green Company that are under construction at the homes at 45 at the former Lodge property. We know that the 5 at the group home associated with that, and the 5 at the Till group home on High Street is finishing up. So we know that there are a few more affordable units that have not yet been added to the inventory. So it looks like we're over the 10% minimum for the affordable.
So just to be totally explicit, the census number, the denominator is 5,801 housing units, right?
Well, the state hasn't officially updated their figures yet, but on the census data that they did include a total, they said 2020 total housing unit count, and they had Westwood listed as the 5,801.
So 5,801. So 10% would be 500 and, well, more than 10% would be 581. And you said that our count of units that we have on the SHI is
598.
Ellen?
Question, Abby, and I don't know whether or not they gave this level of granularity when they gave the preliminary data. Do we know, did they include assisted living units as individual units, and did they include accessory apartments as individual units? I know those were both unclear, up until they actually told us. So did they let us know yet?
They haven't given us that level of data yet of how they calculated that. Nora, is Nora still here? I see your name.
I'm here. Yes, so all we have is a summary number, just the bottom line number. We don't know how it's distributed among types of units, nor do we know how it's distributed across the town. So it remains to be seen. We're waiting for the more detailed data from the census.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's good news, at least preliminarily. Okay, lastly, Abby, you want to speak on the town charter, planning board and associates?
Right, so you have the planning board there, in the charter includes 2 associate members that are appointed by a joint session of the select board and the planning board. 3 years ago, we had 2 positions filled with Steve Rasky and Steve Olenoff. Those positions are set to expire in November. I reached out to both of them and they're both interested in being reappointed. So if you'd like to move forward, I haven't checked on the select board. They don't know their full agenda yet, but they do have a meeting scheduled for November 15th. And if you're all available, we could see if we could get on that agenda for you to vote. So it would be a vote of the planning board and the select board.
Any thoughts by board members?
8 is fine with me.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, no other concerns? Then yes, Ellen.
Just a question, and I read through the snippet from the charter, but can we just reappoint the existing folks, or are we required to put out a call for applicants if they're interested, and or should we, even if we're not required to? I understand they're both interested in being reappointed, and that's great, but there may be other people who are interested in at least being considered as well.
Yeah, there's no.
Sorry.
I would say that's up to you if you want to search for other candidates. It's probably a reasonable practice to make some notification that there'll be 2 appointments, and anyone interested should let Abby know, or Tish Healy know in the select board's office. But that's your call. I don't believe the charter gives you any specific direction on that.
Right, that's what I was going to say too. It's up to you. The charter just says how they're appointed. So it's up to you. If you want, we could put something out, notice out that there's, these openings and ask people to apply.
Okay, is that the will of this board? We want to put out a notification? Yes, Kate.
So does that mean we only have 2 that we can appoint? So we have to go through not that I'm opposed to this, I just want to understand what we're saying. Are we only allowed to appoint 2? Are we going to everyone who applies? Or are we going to have to do a panel elimination thing?
Well, that goes to process, and that's not defined in the charter. So that's a conversation Mr. Paff and Mr. Walsh should probably have about the joint meeting beforehand. So, yeah, I mean, at 10:15 at night, I'm not going to give you a long dissertation on process. The process is really up to both boards together.
I do. So I support the idea of opening it up. I'm not crazy about the idea of another elimination thing.
Yeah,
if you get more than 2, by definition, that's the process you have to go through.
I'll go out on a limb and say, yeah, I'm not thrilled about that process, especially if you've got if you have people that are looking to continue and there's not a lot of sense of a need to change, maybe, like it sets up a false sort of if you want to be on the planning board, you should run for election in the next town election, which is coming up, in a few months. So that's my thought. But I think we should just put this out there as the usual, put it on the calendar and be clear in the agenda that that's what's coming up. And if someone's really interested, they can ask about it and request that we open it up or something. But I know it's kind of, and this is the after 10 p.m. rule should probably be invoked here, but it's just like, you don't want to like go through a big process unless you're really honestly looking to bring new people in through this particular process. And it kind of gets back to that thing of there is a town election, and that's kind of a good way for people to throw their names into the ring versus trying to be an associate member when you've got long-serving, very experienced people that are continuing that role, which is a limited role.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And the reason I brought it up simply was because I wasn't sure if we were required to do anything like that, or if there was any compelling reason that we should. Because I know last time when we appointed Steve and Steve, we had opened, or I wasn't on the board at that point, but it was an open process, and I just wasn't sure how that had come to be. Because there were people there, maybe there were more people interested, but that was what spurred the question was that something that we needed to do? And if not, was it something that we wanted to do? I'm okay either way.
The last time, 3 years ago, one of the members did not want to be reappointed, so we did have an opening. So that's just something to think about. At that time, we really were needing someone to apply and show interest. And that's how we got.
We had one person respond, right? At that
Yes.
time.
Well, Steve Olenoff, and then Steve Rasky was reappointed from the time before.
Right. So we didn't have to go through that process that Kate is dreading, evidently. So if we put it out, then we may go through that process again.
Well, you'd essentially put it out tonight by saying that there's going to be 2 openings and there's going to be an appointment in November.
So I guess the question is, are we asking Abby to solicit resumes, so to speak?
I think you've identified 2 potential openings and that if people are interested in serving in that manner rather than running for office, they can make their wishes known.
All right.
Mr. McCusker, do you disagree?
I do not.
Okay. So the board are we a consensus? We're gonna put the notification out there. And as Mr. Ahern mentioned, we've kind of already done that to some degree. But
Yeah, I mean, we're putting the notification out there, but we're not recruiting, we're not like saying we want to go recruit somebody. I mean, maybe it's a fine line, but
yeah.
My position is more that I don't want to create like we're trying to recruit somebody when that's not what we're doing.
I don't think you've appeared tonight like you're trying to recruit someone. I think you're having a healthy discussion late in the evening about moving forward.
I'll just talk about late in the evening. We went to midnight sometimes for university stations. This is really nothing.
No, we've gotten used to the efficient.
And we don't even have to drive home.
That's true.
No, I think, whatever concern, not that it was even a concern, you've answered my question of we're not obligated to do any kind of open process. So check that box. And
well, whoa. I think it has to be an open process in that it have to be appointed in an open meeting.
Sure. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. We're not under any charter obligation to actively recruit for this. There's nothing in there that says we need to do that. Of course, it would be an open process. But to Mr. Ahern's point, A, we've just discussed the fact that there are 2 openings, and B, it's going to be on an agenda at some point. I think that's ample notice that this is happening. I don't feel that we need to do anything more personally.
Okay. Does the rest of the board agree?
I agree.
Agree.
Dave?
I agree.
Too. Okay. Then Abby, we'll leave it in your capable hands of scheduling a meeting with should we check our availability for November 15th?
Yes, if you all want to check your availability, you can get back to me, after tonight if you want, but November 15th, let me know if that works. If not, we can find another meeting date.
That works for me.
Okay.
I will tell you that I believe that's the night that the selectmen have to set the tax rate. So that will be a busy night for the select board as well. Pardon me, I missed it. Old habits die hard. I called them selectmen a minute ago, the select board.
Well, if they want to suggest an alternative date solely for this issue, then we'll
I think they're meeting later in November as well, so it might only be 2 weeks later.
Okay. Well, Abby, you can pull the board for alternative dates via email if need be.
Okay.
All right. Any other business any members like to bring up before we adjourn? Okay. Take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
Second.
All right. Roll call. Tom.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Kate.
Aye.
Ellen.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Thank you very much for your late attendance.
Travels home.
What's that?
Safe travels home.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good rest of your evening. Enjoy your
Night.
family. All right.
Thanks very much. Good night, all.